Washington is eyeing Greenland not just for its rare earth minerals, but as a key front in the broader global security landscape. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning from the GBH Newsroom in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro. The Worcester-based insurance provider Fallon Health is joining Mass General Brigham. The previously independent, not-for-profit health plan announced the merger with Mass General Brigham today. Boston Business Journal reports that the acquisition comes as nonprofit health plans across the Commonwealth are struggling financially. The two largest plans, Blue Cross and Point32 Health, both posted significant losses in 2025 as healthcare spending rose. Fallon was founded in 1977. Officials in the office of Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey have filed a legal complaint against former Western Mass Deputy Director Lamar Cook in an effort to reclaim over $31,000. Herald reports the money was mistakenly paid to Cook in a contract buyout after he was fired following his arrest in October on drug and gun charges. In a complaint filed yesterday, in Suffolk Superior Court, the Commonwealth admits to the mistake made by the governor's office in paying Cook to begin with, arguing that he's not entitled to the money due to being terminated for cause. In sports, the Bruins host the Flames at the Garden tonight. The Fiesta Bowl. College football is tonight as well. It has Miami taking on Mississippi. In the forecast, we're looking at a slight warm-up today. We'd like that. Sunny, partly cloudy today. High 45 degrees. Clouding up overnight tonight, low 29. Chance of rain tomorrow. Temps in the upper 40s. More of the same for Saturday. 40 degrees in Boston right now. 41 in Springfield. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Wallace Foundation, an independent, nonpartisan research foundation collaborating with grantees and partners in the arts, school leadership, and youth development. More at wallacefoundation.org. This is NPR.
Jim Browdy, I'm Marjorie Egan. Whoop, scoop that up. Sorry, this is BBR GBH.
30 years.
And 8 p.m. Okay, we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of programming notes here, Jim. The Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, is going to join us January 13th, 11 to 12. The Mayor of Boston will be with us, Michelle Wu, January 20th from noon to 1. Sorry about that. Hi.
I'm always jealous because you have the programming announcements.
Yep.
I actually have a programming announcement today, which is a rarity.
Yep.
And you know what it's about? It's about us.
That's right.
Starting the first week in February, Boston Public Radio, at our request, will move back to being a 2-hour show. I want to say for ages, Marjorie and I have urged long-timers like us to create space for the next generation. Finally, Marjorie, we decided to take our own advice.
Yeah, well, there were two reasons we asked GBH to let us do this. First, to make more room for new broadcast talent here. And second, actually to make a little bit more room for room in our own lives.
So we want to assure you and ourselves and our colleagues, same show, just a little bit less of it. Again, first week in February, 2-hour show. We'll be on 11 to 1. The new show
Which
following
is where we
us,
started.
We did. We've been in a lot of time slots, I should say. We're
2 hours, 3 hours,
whatever,
4 hours.
1 hour on the weekend after we got demoted at the old station for a while. We're hanging by a thread. In any case, we will be followed by a new show starting in early February, The Curiosity Desk, that will be anchored by Edgar B. Herwick III, and by the way, led by one of our great, now former colleagues, sadly, but
That's
great for
right.
Edgar.
We're going to miss
Aidan
him.
Conley is going to be running that show. We'll talk more about it. I'm sure we'll talk to Edgar. And the spectacular culture show with our good buddy, Jared Bowen, is going to be in at 2 o'clock as it is now. So 11 to 1, first week in February, Boston Public Radio. 1 to 2, Curiosity Desk with Edgar B. Herwick III. 2 to 3, The Culture Show with Jared Bowen. But again, same show, just a little bit shorter.
That's right. You can talk faster, Jim.
I don't think I can talk faster, but I will try. In any case, we're going to start today's show with the death of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis. She was 37 years old, shot by a federal immigration officer while she was behind the wheel of her car. You've all seen the video. That much we know for certain. There are videos of the shooting from multiple angles that show her moving to get away from ICE agents as they yell for her to get out of her car. In the immediate aftermath, Homeland Security Secretary, most noted for killing her dog, Kristi Noem, had this to say.
It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened, it was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle.
Local officials on the ground were quick to denounce that characterization of events. Here's Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. A warning, he uses profanity that we decided it was important not to bleep out.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bullshit. There's little I can say, again, that'll make this situation better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
I think he's speaking for a lot of mayors and governors in this country. So this is yet another American Rorschach test at a spot just a mile away from the scene of the police killing of George Floyd, just days after the anniversary of January 6th. All violent events in this country that were filmed for all to see. How do we have such disparate interpretations of reality? The lines are open at 877-301-8970. Call or text for your reaction to the latest flashpoint in American politics, 877-301-8970. You know, I should have included in that introduction, too, the thoroughly uninformed, grotesque characterization of Donald Trump, who I think he said he saw the video, and if he did, obviously he's lying. If not, he was misinformed when he said that in a True Social post that the Renee Nicole Good had run over the officer. Yeah. And I'm sure most of you have seen the video 20 times like we did. She avoided the officer and she was driving away. You've written in the past about how police chases. Well, and we'll talk to Andrew Cabral about that at noon. What is the revised rule in most jurisdictions when someone is getting away? You have her license plate, we know.
Let her go.
Let her go. Let her go, and then go arrest her later if you think she's committed some sort of crime. She did not run over the guy. The second cop did have to step back. The first cop said, get the F. He didn't say F. He said the word out of your car as he's grabbing on her handle. She does this sort of three-point turn, attempt to get away. With the second officer does have to step back. He was not run over or hit, and he fires 3 times. And he kills this 37-year-old mother. 877-301-8970. And again, Kristi Noem, who I have to say, it's hard to say who's the least qualified person. This domestic terrorism thing, and I listened to her whole announcement yesterday, and the lack of any concern for the killing of this woman is just incredible.
I mean, she killed her own puppy. I mean, who kills their own puppy? There's something obviously wrong with her. There's something obviously wrong with Donald Trump. But when you saw the pictures of the blood on the airbag that had exposed, and then you saw the glove compartment open, and what was in the glove compartment? There were all these toys, like stuffed animals for her 6-year-old kid who has lost her mother now. I mean, just let her go. Let her go. If she was an American citizen, she had not committed any crime. She motioned one of the ICE cars to go around her, and then I think there's a big issue with training of these people. This is what you hear all over the place this morning. People that are upset by this, they do not go through the training that police officers do, and they're obviously quick on the trigger.
But I don't know enough. I know that
why do they even have guns?
The mayor there, Frey, who did speak about the lack of training in his estimation. There's also an attitudinal thing. Walking over a car and saying, get the F out of your car, I don't think is standard police procedure. She wasn't wielding a weapon.
Grabbing onto the door.
He was trying to open the door to pull her out of the car. And I think this thing, which I have watched probably 50 times from every angle that's available, which I'm sure you have too, is quite clear. But in this world with Donald Trump, obviously it's domestic terrorism, and she ran over the officer, even though neither appears to be true. The number is 877-301-8970. That's our number.
I mean, I think that we need a lot more information about this whole situation. But from what eyewitnesses at the scene said yesterday, it seemed, again, that she was turning away and the cop shot her.
And also, you heard the doctor saying, I'm a doctor, I'm available. They wouldn't allow the doctor to
And the other
help
thing
there.
that the shooter was supposedly so badly injured, well, you saw him on television walking back, many yards from the car with the dead woman in it.
Wasn't injured at all.
Well, he certainly didn't appear
He was in the
to
hospital
be
briefly, which I assume is sort of like a
mental
perfunctory
health kind of thing.
Maybe
Yeah.
it is. And, in any case, it was really painful to watch, but are you surprised? I mean, this mayor said this was going to happen a couple of weeks ago. A lot of mayors said this kind of thing is going to happen. And I think it was only a matter of time, and it happened.
Listen to this. This is from Lauren in Milford, who says that she volunteers to video ICE arrests. As a result, I was chased by an irate ICE agent in September who told me if I kept it up, I would get shot.
Well, also, this is the kind of video that we see from other countries that we criticize for being undemocratic, for being led by vicious dictators. Is America going to stand for this? We shall see. Chuck and Brighton, you're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call today. I have two quick points that I want to make. The first is, what can we do? And I think that the only answer is to shut it down. And by that, I mean, I know that labor has been decimated in America over the last 50 years, but there needs to be a general strike. And from our elected representatives' point of view, ICE is slated to make more or to get more funding than every other domestic law enforcement federal agency combined. So, we have a spending bill coming up. We need to shut down the government. We need to change the funding. And my second point that I want to make is, I think like many people, especially my generation, millennials and younger, we saw the video on our social media feeds. It's splattered all over our social media feeds. And I am incredibly fearful that with the rhetoric from the administration calling this an act of domestic terrorism, they can use this or a future event like this, because this is going to happen again. They can use this as justification for state control over social media. I mean, they're one step away. And if we can't, we've already proven we can't organize in person because community is something that has been decimated by social media over the last decade plus. If we can't even disseminate this information online between ourselves, I mean, it's really dark and really scary.
Chuck, thank you for your thoughts. We really appreciate them.
He's the second or third person in 2 days that's talked about some kind of general strike. Labor organizations getting together with other people and doing something like that. You saw the pictures last night of streets of Minneapolis with vigil around candles and flowers and stuffed animals around the spot where this woman was killed.
Well, we're lucky enough when we talk about people not doing enough, I mean, this woman is every woman in so many ways, and not, as she was described, callously and crassly by the crass and callous president of the United States. We are lucky. We have an outlet here, and I think we convince ourselves that we've done our piece by creating a forum for people to talk about this. And I think it is important. But when people don't do anything in response to this, it's almost complicity. I mean, this woman, at least in our estimation, and we'll talk to people throughout the day, I think she was murdered yesterday on the streets of Minneapolis. And if you share that view, which I'm guessing a significant percentage of our audience does, what do you do about that except mourn her passing and the loss her daughter suffers?
I tell you what, I am enormously grateful to people that took their cell phones out yesterday, because otherwise we would have the president lying, Kristi Noem lying. They would have made up some story. And I can't help thinking back years ago to the case of DJ Henry, a young football player from Massachusetts. Remember how they lied that he was trying to run over the cops back in Pace, New York, when he was shot and killed? I think he was 18 years old. They were lying then. There was no video that recorded what happened to him, and they managed to get away with it and make the police officer who shot him police officer of the year.
And what were it not for two of the most wonderful parents who have ever walked this earth, who kept this issue alive.
And we should also mention that since the George Floyd killing, and obviously the police in Minnesota were under the microscope after that murder of George Floyd, they've talked about reforms there to the police department, de-escalation.
There have been reforms.
Yes, and so I think the police officers there were well trained in de-escalation tactics. It doesn't seem to me ISIS has any de-escalation knowledge at all from what you see on television.
Well, step one for de-escalation is not to walk up to people with a mask over your face so they can't even see who you are. That's pretty terrorizing to begin with.
That's the biggest one. Complaining, Chris, how they're all getting death threats. Everybody's getting death threats. People in the media are getting death threats. Judges are getting death threats. Everybody who says something about Trump is getting death threats.
Other law enforcement people in the country don't wear masks over their face.
They do not, but
let's take some
why is ICE any different?
Well, because they are essentially the Gestapo for this president. Sam in Providence, welcome.
How you guys doing? The first caller, Chuck, I think he was really great. I wish I could be as mature as him about this whole thing. I'm probably twice his age, and I feel like this is a civil war, and I feel like they think that they can just sneak it in and just act like they won the Civil War without declaring it and slide it past us all. And that's what we're seeing. And I think we need to fight back. I just literally think we need to fight back.
What would that fight back look like in your estimation, Sam?
It would look like what they're doing. You need to meet it with the same thing. There's nothing they're doing that I can't do to them, that I wasn't trained to do, that hundreds of thousands of other guys weren't trained to do at Mott Lake. That it's nothing. It's a joke watching these guys. They're security guards.
Well, I have to say, I'm not sure that the violence from those of us who are pulled by this is going to solve this, but we respect your opinion, and we thank you much for your call, Sam. Thank you for calling.
But, somebody just texted about the riot on January 6th, 2020 at the Capitol when Trump tried to shut down steal the election, basically. And, 2021, sorry. He still talks about it as a day of love. That these were wonderful patriots, peaceful tourists out doing these wonderful things. It is incredible that.
Well, he's seriously mentally. I don't mean to say this every day, and I'm not. That is no defense to discuss him as if he is a normal human being with whom you disagree.
But the people all around him do it too. The Republicans in Congress do it too. It's just incredible. You just get up there and lie, and he said yesterday that this woman ran over the ICE guy. Obviously, she didn't run over the ICE guy. We saw him, shoot her, and then walking back from having shot her. Anyway, 877-301-8970. Allison in Rhode Island, thank you for calling.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You guys are the best, and I love listening to you.
Thanks.
I've called before. And one of the things that I wanted to say is that you can see people who are masked with guns. It's scary. And this poor woman was probably just scared. And why didn't this ICE person, instead of shooting her in the head, shoot her tires to stop her? I don't understand.
Well, or not shoot her at all.
Just let her go.
Let her go. You have her license plate. Go to her house and arrest her for whatever crime you believe she has committed.
Exactly. This poor woman, the poor family.
Hey, Allison, we hate to do this. Your connection's horrible. We heard your first point, but it's garbled, so we got to let you go. Thank you much.
It's just lucky that someone wasn't on the street. People could have been walking down the street.
Well, that's one of the primary reasons police departments have reformed the policy, is because onlookers, or whatever they're called.
Quinn in Framingham, thank you for calling.
Hi, Quinn.
Everyone, third-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank you.
So glad about this conversation. I think this conversation is very needed. That being said, I also want us to remember the reason why she was out there. She was out there to document and to, highlight the horrible abuse of immigrant populations in her community. And we all have that ability to join community members, to highlight and document the abuse. So in Massachusetts, there is the organization called Luce, and they have a hotline. So if you see ICE, you can call. And what they do is they then send witnesses to go there and document what is happening, and then send it back to the organization so that they can have a thorough documentation of what ICE is doing. So for all of the, passionate people out there, I know a lot of white people that are very passionate about this. Rather than going to violence, let's listen to the immigrant leaders who are saying that this is what we should be doing. Luce is run and organized by immigrant leaders, so let's listen to them, follow their lead, and support those organizations. Thank you.
We thank you. Thank you so much for the call. Another person we haven't mentioned, and I apologize, I can't remember her name, the woman who made the video from across the street, who I think came out because what they do in that neighborhood is someone blows a whistle when ICE is there, and she was the one that was screaming at the police officers for what they did when the doctor whose services they would not employ was standing near her. And by the way, the beauty of her, she said when she was on CNN last night, I was nervous about doing this. I'm not a public speaker. I know I'm not that articulate, but I knew what they were going to do. I'm paraphrasing how they were going to try to manipulate the reality here. And I thought I had to be here to explain the truth, which I thought was really beautiful and powerful. Barbara in Gloucester, hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
This program is part of the reason why I send my money to NPR or to GBH every month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that, we need to keep our eye on the prize. And the prize is restoring our democracy, which means bringing down the present fascist government. And you just had a caller on who called for meeting violence with violence. And the Harvard professor Chenoweth, who has studied this, victimization of societies by fascist regimes, her study shows that the probability of success with nonviolent action is far greater. So if we want to win, and we do, we must embrace nonviolence. And I say, it's not about our bullets, it's about our money.
Meaning?
Meaning, look what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. In 3 days, everyone didn't cancel Disney and Hulu. Their cancellation rate only doubled. And in 3 days, they restored Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
So and you had a previous caller call for a general strike, January 20th, 5051. You can find them online. They're calling for a walkout on January 20th for only 2 hours. And that would show the resolve of the people to stop supporting this regime with our money.
We'll check it out. We thank you, and we are with you, as I hope we expressed, on terms of meeting violence with violence. But I'm glad you said it, and you said it well. Barbara, thank you very much for your call.
Okay, we're going to keep talking about this for a while longer. The number is 877-301-8970 if you want to call or text your reaction to the murder or shooting of a 37-year-old mother of a 6-year-old in Minnesota yesterday. 877-301-8970. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH any PM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, move over dry January. Here comes dry martini January. We're shaking and stirring things up with Jackson Cannon, beverage director of ES Hospitality, to talk about the history, lore, and craft behind 007's favorite cocktail. Plus, Amari Parris-Jeffries, president and CEO of Embrace Boston, joins us to talk about their Martin Luther King Day programming. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Bryant University, ranked 5th in the nation for internships and recruiter demand by LinkedIn's 2025 Top Colleagues list. Committed to preparing students to be day one ready for success. Learn more at bryant.edu. And Boston Ski and Tennis, helping families stay active and outdoors this winter, offering a range of winter sport products and services with locations in Newton and Westboro or online at bostonskiandtennis.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Margaret and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're talking about the killing of this 37-year-old mother in Minneapolis by ICE agents, which is characterized, I think, as fantasy by Kristi Noem and her boss, Donald Trump, and reality by all of our callers. By the way, I've been saying how much I admire the mayor of Minneapolis, and I've been repeatedly mispronouncing his name. Thanks to Tector. It's Fry, not Frey. My apologies to the mayor. Let's go.
Just one thing. So many people are texting saying that they were so upset they couldn't sleep last night. Somebody texted earlier said they took a Valium. It's kind of like you can't get away from all these horrible things that are happening day after day after day after day after day.
Well, I appreciate that, but I also I went out of my way, and I feel that way sometimes too. I went out of my way to watch those videos at every single angle as often as I possibly could to ensure that the fantasy being propagated by Noem and Trump was exactly what it was. Marion Mansfield, hello there.
Oh, hi. The reason I'm calling is my understanding was the woman that was there that got shot was because she was there because she had dropped her kid off at school.
Yeah.
Primarily. And which then I guess makes dropping your kid off at school a terrorist action, which is one of Kristi Noem's. Anyway, the other.
I thought it was both. I could be wrong, but I thought it was both. She was also.
I did too.
Yeah, that she had dropped the child off at school, but she was also involved in warning neighbors. At least that's what one of the neighbors said, but I could be mistaken.
Our colleagues are going to check. Go ahead.
But the other thing is that all of this violence, meeting their violence with violence feeds into what they want us to do, because then they'll be able to put off the election, start a civil war. It feeds into all the other. We have a war on hand. We can't have an election, and that allows them to remain in power. We have a war in Venezuela. We have a war in Greenland. We have a war at home. The enemy within. It feeds all of that. Whereas the previous caller who was saying, fight with your wallet is much more savvy. That's the way to control without violence and to make your voice really heard in a powerful way,
We do know. Mary, thanks. Appreciate your thoughts.
I want to read the text from Adam from New Hampshire, because he's certainly not the only one who thinks this. The woke left woman got killed because they have normalized interference and harassment of federal officers conducting legal operations under orders from a duly elected president. The woke left of the fascists they condemn. They do it under the guise with a thought of moral superiority. Adam, you probably do know that this is not legal, what they're doing. A lot of the time, they're arresting the wrong people. They are allowing nobody any due process. They're taking people off the streets, some of them United States citizens, putting them in holding cells. We just talked to the people that were up in Burlington. They're supposed to be there only for a couple of hours. Sometimes they're there for days. Their families don't know where they are. Nobody knows where they are. You get arrested for a murder. You get taken down to the police station, and people are entitled to know where you are. This is not half the time, if not more than that, it is not legal what they're doing. You have due process.
Well, let me just add something to what you
States.
said, though. If it were legal and they were doing it like they were doing it, wouldn't you want people to be out in the streets? It's just not right.
No, it's just not right. So, again, I and I don't know.
The woke left or the fascists they condemn?
That's right.
What are you talking about, Adam? Let's take some calls.
He's in New Hampshire, so you never know what goes on up there in New Hampshire.
Because they have no sidewalks.
They don't have any sidewalks.
Right, exactly.
If they had sidewalks, it'd be a different story.
Carolyn Amherst, hey.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Yeah, it's critical that people not use violence, because they want any excuse they can to invoke the Insurrection Act that will then result in martial law. They could try to cancel elections. We absolutely have to use every peaceful means to resist in every way possible. So we need to be in the streets a lot more. When South Korea had a dictator that was taking over, they were in the streets every weekend. And we're really at a crossroads. We've got to be protesting a lot more. We've got to be calling our Congress people every day if we have to. Taking over Venezuela, taking over another country, declaring that we will control their oil. This is colonialism. All of this violates international law, domestic law, our Constitution. We should demand our representatives hold sit-ins. Don't conduct business as usual. We're really in a crisis. And, if we let this thing with Venezuela go, isn't this Czechoslovakia, pre-World War II Germany? We really have to do a lot more to protest, but absolutely no violence, because that's exactly what they want.
Carol, that was borderline that was a perfect phone call.
Great book on fascism. Read Jason Stanley's How Fascism Works. It's written before Trump's second term, and it's like a playbook for what they're doing now. We've got to educate ourselves more. This really is, sadly, fascism and authoritarianism, and it's here.
Thank you, Carol. Really appreciate your call. Thank you.
Here's another Trump text. You can't block the road the way she did. ICE is performing a job, being harassed for it. She put herself in harm's way, and for that, she made her child an orphan.
Okay, can I make a personal request?
Yeah.
Don't read anymore.
They're out there.
Well, they may be out there. It's so ridiculous. And as I've said before, if they want to make their point, they should call us and have a discussion with us rather than sending anonymous text to the show. At least that's how I feel about this. By the way, just I know we're going to talk a lot about this today with a lot of the people who are going to join us. We'll probably give you another opportunity tomorrow to talk about it as well, because I'm sure there are going to be more developments, and we really thank you for your calls. So how many did you watch the video?
Over and over.
And why did you do it?
Because I was trying to see. I found it extremely helpful, actually, when on CNN they put the circle around the shooter,
cop,
so you could see where he was. They showed it from different angles. I thought it was.
What do you think of the courage, speaking of CNN, of that young woman across the street?
She was great.
How great was she?
She was great. And I was impressed by the courage of other neighbors who came out there on camera with their names or were quoted in the paper for saying that what they thought was a murder. I mean, you talk about
right,
death
you become
threats.
A target yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I don't know why everybody else, it's okay that everybody else gets death threats, but somehow the ICE agents, death threats are not a good thing, obviously. But to say that they're somehow unique in 2025 in America is ridiculous. Anyway,
thanks for calls.
We're out of time for this. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to talk with the great media commentator Margaret Sullivan about Minnesota, about Venezuela, about the new CBS under Barry Weiss. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Migration is nothing new. In fact, it's as old as humanity itself. This is from someone who spent more than a decade as a global nomad. His advice: don't get too comfortable staying in one place.
Keep kind of a psychic bag packed. Don't always look at it as an emergency thing or a negative thing. It can have huge positive connotations as well.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Vivo Performing Arts, formerly Celebrity Series, presenting Taishan Sori Trio, with Pulitzer Prize-winning Sori on drums, Aaron Deal on piano, and Harish Raghavan on bass, January 16th at Berkeley Performance Center. VivoPerformingArts.org. And the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, presenting the luminous watercolors of Winslow Homer, together for the first time in a generation, of light and air. Winslow Homer in watercolor closes January 19th. More at mfa.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browder and Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Massachusetts Attorney General Campbell will join us for an hour to take your questions on January 13th at the library. Mayor Wu will join us at the library for an hour to take your questions. on January 20th. We don't have a date for the governor yet in January, but we will. Joined now on Zoom by Margaret Sullivan, author of the wildly popular Substack American Crisis, which asks if journalism can save American democracy. Somebody better. She's former media columnist for the Washington Post, former public editor of the New York Times. Job title no longer exists. She's now at The Guardian, where she writes a column on media, politics, and culture. And again, that Substack is American Crisis, available at margaretsullivan.substack.com. Margaret, good to see you again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Good to see you guys.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us again, Margaret Sullivan. So I wonder if you got a chance to watch much news coverage of the shooting of the young mother in Minnesota. What'd you make of it?
Well, I think the news coverage in general has been strong, and the video, we're needing to ask people, you're going to believe what you're being fed or your own eyes. And I think that I know that New York Times and I think CNN are both doing sort of, I don't know whether you call them forensic analyses of this video that really slows it down and shows the angles. And I think it gives the lie to this idea of self-defense, which is exactly what you would expect in this situation, but I don't think it's true. So, not all. Obviously, there's a range of news coverage, and when we talk about the media, it's hard to be so general. Fox News is one thing. The Boston Globe is another thing, and we can be grateful for that.
Yeah, Fox News was generally on the side of President Trump and ICE, from what I have read this morning.
Yes, yeah, I think that's true. I haven't spent a lot of time watching Fox about this, but in general, they've been cheerleading the Venezuela raid for one thing, and it's kind of what they do. So it's not really surprising. But this is just so sad, so tragic. This young mother, and basically she was murdered, and it's terrible.
Well, we're also going to have the former Secretary of Public Safety in Massachusetts with us in about 20 minutes, who I assume is going to tell us that virtually every decent police department in America has determined in similar circumstances, when someone is driving away, you get their license plate and go arrest them if they've done something horrible, rather than shooting them in the head 2 more times. But obviously that doesn't apply to the masked men of ICE.
Right.
We're talking to Margaret Sullivan. So, Margaret, you were very lucky we don't have your home address, because after the 60 Minutes debacle, Marjorie and I would have driven to your house to talk to you. So this is our first opportunity. So I know what your reaction was, but people may not have read. What was your reaction to the spiking, other than in Canada, of this report on the prison that Barry Weiss killed? And what's your take on the first few months of Barry Weiss in charge?
Right. So I think we knew that she would be wanting to turn things on their heads at CBS News, and that she so quickly moved to spike, as you say, or, yank, or whatever, however people might know the word, but keep from being published this 60 Minutes episode about the El Salvador, very brutal El Salvador prison, where Venezuelan migrants were being sent without due process. And I watched the episode because, as you say, Jim, it was published, it was aired in Canada. And so there were kind of bootleg versions of it going around. And I imagine a lot of your audience has seen it. But if they haven't seen it, it's very well done. It seems very thorough. It seems very fair. It's also extremely upsetting. So the idea that she pulled it off, from being published within the last day, and it had already been promoted and so on. It was in my mind, it was a piece of censorship. And in a way, there's no surprise about it, because I think she's been put in place to do that kind of thing. And so in a sense, she's doing her job.
So what's the chilling? I mean, Marjorie comes in every Monday if she's seen 60 Minutes to report to me about whether or not she thinks 60 Minutes has changed its approach to its reporting because of this.
Well, they
heavy
hadn't.
hand.
In my estimation, this is where you really saw it. They did a few tough pieces on Trump earlier, and then all of a sudden we had this 60-minute show where there was two long segments on climbing Mount Everest and something. You just thought, what is going on here? But explain the whole thing that she's working for these Paramount, for these Ellisons, and they're increasing their hold over all sorts of media, and they want their deal to go through. Isn't that part of the deal?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think so. The backstory here is, and if you really zoom out, we've got this corporatization of the news media, ownership by very rich people who are, who have huge companies. In this case, Paramount Global, now Paramount Skydance, because they've merged. And in every case, I think, or in many cases, they're trying to make sure they don't alienate anyone in the Trump administration because federal, there are federal rules and regulations that have to be worked through if they're going to do these mergers. And in this case, Paramount Skydance, which is the parent company of CBS, is trying to buy the parent company of CNN, which is Warner Brothers Discovery. And it's unlikely, not impossible, but they're going against the odds because a different offer, one from Netflix, has already been accepted by the shareholders. So what they really want to do this. So certainly what they don't want to do while this is all going on is get anybody in the Trump administration ticked off. And this episode would have been very negative for the administration. So, I can't say what's in Barry Weiss's head, but it certainly is an odd coincidence that this thing would be pulled for, I think, a very flimsy reason, which was, the purported reason was, well, we don't have on-camera commentary from people like Stephen Miller or whoever it may be. But in fact, they were given every opportunity to do that, and they didn't do it. So, it's going to be interesting to see if this thing ever airs. I think that Barry Weiss and company are hoping that, enough time goes by and people forget about it, and there's always another distraction There's always another crisis and something worse. But it was a bad thing that happened, and I think it's very telling.
While you say you can't tell us what's going on in Barry Weiss's head, I hope you can tell us what's going on in the head of their new CBS Evening News anchor's head. This is just, he cried in one segment talking about Miami. He did an incredibly soft interview with the Secretary of War, Hegseth. Here's his bizarre tribute to Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
And now AI memes have added to that portfolio, casting Secretary Rubio as the new governor of Minnesota, the new Shah of Iran, the prime minister of Greenland, the new manager of Manchester United, the head of Hilton Hotels, and highest of high honors of all, the new Michelin man. Now, back in real life, of course, these memes may not add up to much, but for Rubio's hometown fans, which are many around here in Miami, it is a sign of how Florida, once an American punchline, has become a leader on the world stage. Marco Rubio, we salute you. You're the ultimate Florida man.
And I also forgot on Instagram, when he was asked about Walter Cronkite, he says, I can promise you we'll be more accountable, and I can't even read this, and more transparent than Cronkite or anyone else of his era. Can you tell us what's going on in his head, Margaret Sullivan?
Well, that thing that you just had us listen to is so embarrassing. I understand that these evening news shows have a segment at the end that's softer, maybe a couple segments at the end that are softer. If you watch ABC News with David Mure, he's got this Made in America thing. And, they do that. Kids are riding on fire trucks, whatever. But this was so inappropriate. The Secretary of State, just after this raid, seemingly, and I think illegal raid on Venezuela and the capturing of its leader, and to do this sort of weird celebration, and as you say, he's comparing himself to Walter Cronkite, who sat in that chair very famously. He was the longtime CBS News anchor. And, the judgment is just bizarre. And, I don't know what to say. I hope that he settles down, I guess. Or I guess maybe I hope that it just crashes and burns. It's not good. It's terrible judgment. It's embarrassing. It's not journalistic. I don't know what to say more than that about it. It's bad.
Margaret Sullivan, one of the things I find so scary about this, too, and as you say, CNN may soon be under the same umbrella, which I guess means they're going to stop criticizing Donald Trump as well, is that, once upon a time, we had monopoly, laws in the country. So now we have Fox News, which has done, I think, a lot, all those programs about, Fox News drove my father insane or turned him over the, that we could have Fox News, CBS News, all these stations with spewing propaganda that people believe. Then you have Sinclair Broadcasting. What do they have? 200 and some stations all over the country. They're in the tank for the president, too. So this is very scary to me.
It is. And it really makes me, it is very scary and it's awful and it shouldn't be happening. This kind of media consolidation should not be the case. And when corporations own news organizations, they should leave them alone and let the editors do their jobs, like real editors. But it's the world we live in right now, is this world of media consolidation. And it makes me especially appreciative of the good news organizations that do exist. And, even though I criticize the New York Times and have for many years, I'm very appreciative that they're basically independent. They're not owned by a huge corporation. When you see what's happened at the Washington Post under Jeff Bezos, I'm very sad and also sort of split on that, because I did work there for 6 years and it was great. It was a great paper. And their news side, I think, is still doing a very good job. But their opinion side is, it's an embarrassment. The day after the Venezuela raid, or maybe 2 days after, their lead opinion piece had a little like dancing rotating cowboy hat. And the piece was about how cowboy hats should become the national uniform or the national dress of the United States. Now, again, I understand a lighthearted piece, but it led the opinion section on the app at a very serious time. And the Post had this immediate editorial that said, I think the headline was "Justice in Venezuela." So, they're all about what the administration is doing.
Especially when you think of the person that we most associate with cowboy hats now is Kristi Noem, who was wearing a cowboy hat yesterday at her press conference about Minnesota.
Yeah, right.
CNN is our station of choice. I don't know if we've said this to you in the past. I'm totally confused as to what its future looks like under these competing bids. Could you give us a short version of where you think they end up?
Yeah. Right now, it seems the shareholders of Warner Brothers Discovery have said multiple times now, we've accepted Netflix's bid, and that's what we're going to do. Could that change? Could Paramount Skydance, which in my mind is the bad guy here, or certainly the worst guy, overcome that because of some help from the administration or from the yes, I guess that could happen. Anything could happen these days. It's never, try not to be shocked at what's going on. But we don't really know how Netflix would run CNN, but I don't think that it would have the same, we've already seen what happens when Paramount Skydance gets a hold of a storied news organization, CBS News. We're seeing it before our eyes. So I hope very much that doesn't happen at CNN, which, as you say, Jim, has this, it has this global reporting force. They do a lot of good work. They're not flawless. Nobody is, but they come at things pretty straight. And I think it would be really awful if they met the same fate. Okay, so what would happen? They could get an editor sort of like Barry Weiss. They could get a top, whatever that position would be. And all of a sudden, different decisions are getting made. I mean, I was the top editor of a news organization in Buffalo, the daily newspaper, and the editor gets to say, no, we're going to run this. No, yes, we're going to run this. No, we're not going to run this. We're going to devote our resources over there or over here. There's a lot of power in that job. And it can really, it can have a great staff, but the staff doesn't get to overrule the editor. So I think it could be, I hope very much that that doesn't happen again, because we've already seen what's happened at CBS News.
Full disclosure, I should say again, my daughter works at CNN. Anyway, you wrote a great piece about schools.
I love this.
And you talked about the role of books in your own life, and the idea that in many schools that kids cannot make it through an entire book anymore. What'd you say?
Well, I read this piece. It was based on 2,000 interviews with teachers and parents and kids. And what it says basically is that I don't know whether they could make it through, but high school students are no longer, for the most part, being assigned full books, like full novels, To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, more modern things like John Green's great young adult book, The Fault in Our Stars. They're being assigned excerpts in a sort of an anthology fashion, and they're reading them on their school-issued laptops. So I find it really disturbing, because I think that books are so important. I mean, I don't know. It's a simple belief of mine, and it was how I grew up. It's how I brought my children up, and I was really active in Buffalo in this program called Books for Kids, which tried to put books in the hands of less fortunate, kids, so that they could be exposed to books, because we know from other studies that it makes a huge difference in academics, in the kind of job you get, in your vocabulary development, just having books in the home. So I find it really disturbing that, we somehow have come to this idea that kids can't handle or won't read anything except short excerpts.
Can I read one line from your thing that really resonated with me? Because my older daughter was the exact same age as your older daughter when you had an experience. Margaret writes, one of my most cherished memories as a parent is taking my 7-year-old daughter to pick up our family's copy of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire from a local bookstore the first day it came out. In the car, she had the hefty volume on her tiny lap and had begun racing through it. When we got to Harvard Square at midnight, or 11 o'clock, there had to be, 150 families standing out there.
In their outfits.
It was exactly. And so many of the parents and the little kids said, it was the first time their kid was reading a whole book or reading a book. And then when you follow up with that, I know it was with my older daughter, it really began a behavior that continued through her life to this day, 20-some years later. It's really pretty beautiful.
It's very important. And, I usually write about like very serious, kinds of, news media stuff. And it's just sort of an aside, but The Guardian, when we approach the holidays, they'll say, you have any ideas for stuff that would, isn't really off the news, but you want to say? And I thought about this. I once also wrote a piece about my new love for vinyl records, because my kids had given me a turntable. And so that was fun. I mean, it's fun sometimes to get away from like what horrible thing is going on that's going to wreck our democracy. But I mean, this book story, I don't think it actually has a very serious aspect to it, because I think you develop critical thinking through reading. And I also feel, I don't know how you guys feel, or maybe I'm dead wrong about this and it's wrong, but I think there's something to be said for reading in print.
Oh, yes.
Me too.
And not, I have a Kindle and I do read on my Kindle sometimes, but I prefer to read in print. My adult children prefer to read in print. And I think there's something about the physical page and the ink on the page that matters.
Margaret, I was smiling because very briefly, when Marjorie was a columnist at the Herald for many years, right around Christmas, her editor asked her to do the same thing. And she wrote a beautiful story, full front page picture of Marjorie sitting on her couch with her dog on her lap.
Yeah.
And she wrote this beautiful tribute to Harry the P, her dog. And I, of course, read the comments before I read the story. What were the comments like, Marjorie?
Oh, they were awful. I was having sex with my dog. Was sort of the.
Bad.
Well,
That's too bad.
I work for a tabloid, Margaret. You get that kind of stuff.
Having said that, it's a beautiful
But I want to mention one other thing, and maybe it's a little bit off the subject, but I think it might resonate with your folks. Is the power of a single piece of writing, and I'm thinking of Tatiana Schlossberg's piece in the New Yorker.
Yes,
and very, very sadly, she's now passed away. But that really hit a lot of people hard, and I think it made us feel the tragedy of her very recent passing.
Glad you mentioned it.
I think if you haven't read it, it's in the New Yorker. It's an absolutely heartrending piece of journalism. A young mother loses her child. Margaret Sullivan, thank you very, very much for being
Talk to you soon,
good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Be well.
Margaret Sullivan is the author of the wildly popular Substack American Crisis, which asks if journalism can save American democracy. Foreign media columnist for the Washington Post, foreign public editor of the New York Times. She's now at The Guardian, where she also writes a column on media, politics, and culture. Right after margaretsullivan.substack.com. Okay, Andrew Cabral is up next after the noon news. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Fixed Dental, offering permanent teeth-on implants customized in their laboratory, enabling their doctors and technicians to oversee every aspect of the smile design. Learn more about all the treatments offered at Fixed at fixeddental.com. Examine the fault lines in American democracy through an unlikely relationship between a liberal public defender and her clients caught up in the January 6th Capitol attack. Watch Public Defender tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on Hour 2 of BPR. We start the noon hour with former Public Safety Secretary Andrew Cabral on the fatal shooting by an ICE agent in Minneapolis, plus whether the judge in the Maduro case in New York City is just too old.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then the A Group Common Man for Ukraine just returned from a convoy to the war-torn country, delivering food and supplies. We'll talk to co-founders Susan Mathison and Lisa Mure about the conditions they're seeing on the ground after nearly 4 years of war. Then listeners everywhere are rejoicing. It's another edition of our Two More Things segment at the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. In Minneapolis, protests continue for another day over the death of 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, who was shot and killed in her vehicle by an ICE agent. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says the agent shot her in self-defense, something local and state officials say isn't true. And speaking in New York just now, Noem said agents yesterday were just doing their job and talked about President Trump's overall plan to oust people in the U.S. illegally.
President Trump and his law enforcement officers that are entrusted to protect the American people will every day continue to keep America safe. Operation Salvo is just the beginning of a broader and a much more sustained effort to go after not only transnational criminal organizations and networks, but also illegal criminal aliens throughout the country.
She's deployed some 2,000 ICE agents to Minneapolis. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison.
The real problem here is the decision from the chief executive of this country, the president, to escalate ICE agents in Minneapolis and all over the country. We've seen this in LA, Portland, Illinois, and it has done no one any good. And now it has cost somebody their life.
Speaking there to NPR's Morning Edition. Amid the political uncertainty in Venezuela following the U.S. ouster of President Nicolas Maduro, President Trump says he's spoken with the leader of neighboring Colombia. NPR's Deepa Shivaram has more.
The call between Trump and Colombian President Gustavo Petro comes just days after Trump was criticizing the Latin American leader, accusing him of making drugs and selling it to the U.S. On Sunday, Trump even seemed open to the idea of U.S. intervention in Colombia. He said it was a, quote, great honor to speak with Petro and that they spoke about drugs and other disagreements they've had. Trump says he invited Petro for a meeting at the White House soon. Deepa Shivaram, NPR News.
The House is expected to vote today to restore subsidies for people paying for their health insurance premiums under the Affordable Care Act. NPR's Sam Greenglass reports a bipartisan Senate deal is gaining support.
For weeks, House Republican leadership refused to allow a vote on the subsidies. So 4 swing district Republicans joined with Democrats to force a vote using a maneuver called a discharge petition. A procedural vote yesterday attracted support from 9 Republicans. Boosters of the subsidies have hoped that success in the House would recharge bipartisan negotiations in the Senate. Here's Republican Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio.
So we're in the red zone, but that does not mean a touchdown. It could mean a 95-yard fumble.
The emerging Senate deal would extend the subsidies for 2 years and allow people in the second year to opt for funds in a health savings account instead of a subsidy that goes to the insurer. Sam Greenglass, NPR News, Washington.
And you're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts ranks 3rd nationwide for college closures, mergers, and acquisitions. So says a new report from Higher Ed Dive. Mass Live reports that the organization found Massachusetts has had 11 college closures and mergers since 2016, which doesn't include several others, including the branch campus of Bard College at Simon's Rock. The only states above Massachusetts were New York, which had 13, and Pennsylvania had 12. Financial pressures have led more than 24 Mass colleges to close over the past decade. Most recently, Eastern Nazarene College, a private liberal arts college in Quincy, closed its doors last May. And after significant turmoil and turnover of its leadership in recent years, the Mass Convention Center Authority is this close John Barrows to lead the agency. Barrows was Boston's chief of economic development under Mayor Marty Walsh. He also served as executive director of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative and unsuccessfully ran for mayor of Boston in 2013 and 2021. The Convention Center Board has a 4 p.m. meeting tomorrow, at which time Barrows might be named. And today, January 8th, is National Bubble Bath Day. People have been enjoying warm baths for thousands of years in ancient Rome, and bathing at public facilities was part of the daily routine. That was ancient Rome. But until the late 1940s, the average American bathed about once a week for personal hygiene. Today, though, they take a daily shower. Life is like a nice hot bubble bath. The longer you're in it, the more wrinkles you get. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR produce programming that meets the highest standards of public service in journalism and cultural expression.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, is going to be with us January 13th at the library from 11 to 12. And the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us January 20th, also at the library from noon to 1. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. We're joined now on Zoom by Andrea Cabral. She's the former Public Safety Secretary from Massachusetts and former Sheriff of Suffolk County. Andrea, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Hi, Andrea. So what do you think about what the killing of the young mother in Minnesota last night, or yesterday afternoon, I should say, yesterday morning, actually?
A lot of things. But first of all, what I'll say is that I did see the video, what was released anyway, of the video. I completely agree with the mayor of Minneapolis. And I think that we're long past the time when elected leaders should have the same energy around everything that's happening in this country as the mayor of Minneapolis has.
Amen.
Around this particular homicide. In terms of the killing itself, I think it's important to look at, as we look at ICE, we should look at every other federal agency the same way, which is these are not, the way federal agencies are operating right now under Trump is not the same as they have traditionally operated. So he's thrown an unprecedented amount of taxpayer money at ICE. They have, and we've been talking about this for a very long time on this show, their recruitment of people who are not necessarily qualified to be ICE agents and their lack of training of these agents. We've talked about their recruitment into the FBI and other law enforcement agencies of people who were white supremacists, them sort of lowering the standards for what is racist behavior. And then in addition to that, attracting a certain type of individual to an agency like ICE and then failing to train them. So essentially, as the mayor of Minneapolis said, you've got people out there that are not well trained. This is not a federal government whose agencies are operating at peak performance. They're not doing any of this very well. ICE agents are not police. They are not first responders. Pulling your gun and shooting into the car, shooting at the head of a driver who is simply pulling away from you is to me, it's murder. Now, I say that with the caveat that an investigation is ongoing, but I'll also state that it was incredibly irresponsible, if not criminal in my view, for Kristi Noem, for the President of the United States, to come out and say, this woman is a domestic terrorist. This woman she behaved horribly, according to Trump. She was trying to run them over. The video.
No, excuse me. She wasn't trying. She, quote, viciously ran him over, was what Trump posted on Truth Social.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes, he said that she actually ran them over. They're just lying. They lie about everything. At this point, it's axiomatic. There's an almost irrebuttable presumption that whenever they put anything out into the public, they are lying about it. And they're basically daring the American public to disbelieve what they can see with their own eyes.
Well, I mean, if you look at January 6th.
Video, it's clear.
Look at January 6th. I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
Exactly. But
can I ask you a couple? You broach exactly what I wanted to broach with you. With two legal questions. One, I'm embarrassed to say I don't know the answer to this because I know there was a Supreme Court decision not too long ago. Obviously, the feds are not going to seriously investigate this or prosecute. The state may. Can the state prosecute a federal law enforcement person like an ICE official? That's the first question. And the corollary question is, how can that process of investigation and potential indictment be fair when the President of the United States has already, as we just said, quote, she viciously ran over him, and the chief, whatever she is, Homeland Security, said domestic terrorism. Can you address both of those?
Yes. So the short answer to the first part of your question is yes. A state can prosecute a federal officer for a federal crime, obviously up to and including murder. The Supreme Court sort of modified one of its previous decisions. The most recent decision is the Martin decision. They modified a decision called In re Nagel that came down in 1890, I think. But there are caveats to it. First, the case may be removed to federal court, and that's usually at the behest of the federal government. So you can sort of expect that if an indictment were to come down in state court, the DOJ would immediately move to, under Pam Bondi, certainly, immediately move to have it removed to federal court. So that's the first part of it. And also the way that the Martin decision sort of modified the Nagel decision is that the state would have to prove that the exercise of deadly force in this case was not necessary and was not proper to the execution of the ICE officials' duties. That would seem to make some sense. If you could indict someone for murder, especially given what we've seen, I would assume that they would be taking the step to prove that this was an unlawful, a shooting, right? It was a murder. But the problem is then who prosecutes it? Because if it's removed to federal court, I don't believe that it's a state, ADA that would do the prosecution. I think it would be an AUSA, in which case the fix would be in, because there's no way Pam Bondi is not going to, try to dismiss the case, or even if it had to go forward, protect it by having someone prosecuted who's being a little half-hearted about it. So I would think that there'd have to be some sort of judiciary step in to say that a special prosecutor, an independent special prosecutor, would have to be named. That's what I would hope would happen. I would expect that even if Minneapolis brings it, to squash it, to make sure that it doesn't happen. Yeah. They've already drawn the line in the sand. They've already decided who this woman was, what she did, without any facts at their disposal. And that's why I keep saying you cannot judge these federal agencies under Trump the way they have historically been judged. They are rogue agencies, as he is a rogue president.
Talking to Andrea Cabral.
I mean, it is really frightening when you think about this, that this is in the hands of Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump.
Maybe. A state agency is doing an investigation. We heard that from the mayor yesterday. And the issue about it being, what is the verb, removed to the federal court, or if there's a prosecution, I mean, obviously a court can decide not to do that. So I'm not being unnecessarily hopeful, but at minimum, there can be a prosecution that's initiated if they determine the facts merited. Can we go to another part of the country with you for a second? Alan Jackson obviously became famous in this part of the country as the lead defense lawyer for Karen Reed. Yesterday, he was representing Nick Reiner, who obviously people know is accused of murdering his parents, Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner. And he also represents Harvey Weinstein and that sort of thing. Yesterday, he withdrew from the case, and here's what Jackson had to say.
This morning, I had to withdraw as Nick Reiner's counsel. I'm legally and I'm ethically prohibited from explaining all the reasons why. I know that's a question on everybody's mind. Me and my team, we dropped everything. And for the last 3 weeks, we have devoted literally every waking hour to protecting Nick and his interests. Pursuant to the laws of this state, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder.
Why did Jackson withdraw, in your estimation, Andrea?
I can only tell you what I thought based on what I've read. I think that it probably was about the money and Nick Reiner's inability to come up with a retainer or have somebody come up with a retainer sufficient. Now, that could be wrong, but I have a feeling that if it were because of a conflict, perhaps Jackson having represented someone in his past that puts him at odds with his ability to properly represent Reiner, that he would have made that very clear. Lawyers are, especially in the defense bar, pretty scrupulous about not wanting to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. So the fact that he was on the case so immediately probably put in a lot of people's minds the notion that somebody had come up with a sufficient retainer, because why would he take the case for nothing? But I don't think that that's what happened. I think this really is about the money. I mean, when you read some of the stories, they quote some other lawyers as saying, it was because we used to say Mr. Green hasn't shown up. A defense attorney will approach a judge and say, Judge, I need a continuance because Mr. Green hasn't shown up because I haven't been paid, essentially. I think that's probably what it is with Jackson. And I think Jackson's statement about him being not guilty and his statement about we threw ourselves into this case is sort of a little self-protection effort on his part to show people that he did work for which he has not been paid. And he doesn't want to leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth around withdrawing from this case. But it's not unusual for reasons of money or anything else to have a private attorney.
Well, I hadn't thought about it.
I'm not clear. Maybe I should be about. I know Karen Reed lost her home, but where did she get the money? Because whatever her home was worth, it wasn't enough to pay that. She had a big team of defense lawyers. Do we know about that?
Well, I think part of what likely happened, and again, I don't have paperwork in front of me or contracts or anything, is that, there probably were people who contributed to a defense fund for her, and there were certain rights to movies, television, books, which, she could sign over to him.
Yeah.
And he would be the one who would profit from that. There are plenty of ways to pay an attorney.
We're talking to Andrew Cabral. And by the way, the thing that lends credence to your interpretation or your thesis is he's now being represented, at least temporarily, by a public defender, not another private sector lawyers. By the way, our colleagues, I was thinking the same thing, just typed on our screen. Great line, quote, "There are plenty ways to pay an attorney." We'll remember that one.
Okay.
It's nearly unlimited number of ways.
So Jeffrey Toobin, I'm a big fan of his. He got in trouble. He did do that terrible thing where he was on Zoom with no pants on. I shouldn't even mention that. I shouldn't have mentioned that. But I think he's done his penance and he's back. But very smart guy. He's an attorney, obviously, former federal prosecutor. He thinks that the judge in the Maduro case, at 92 years old, Maduro case, is too old to be the judge in this case. What'd you think?
I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this. And I will say, it's funny. Unfortunately for Toobin, what you brought up is absolutely going to just follow him for the rest of his life.
I know.
Because when you read something and you're not sure if you agree with him, you immediately think to yourself, well, who are you to talk, right?
Yeah.
Given what you got caught doing.
Yeah, right? Keep your pants on and your hands in the right place on Zoom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when I take a step back, and I only said that about him because he's talking about this judge's ability to sort of exercise continuous judgment and focus. And I'm thinking, you couldn't do that on a Zoom, right?
Listen to the two of you.
Why don't you leave the 92-year-old well-respected judge alone, right?
Oh, my God.
But he is correct. I do agree with him that this is going to be a case of probably unprecedented length and complexity. And so, that is always sort of the issue. You do want to have a judge that can stay on top of everything. And, perhaps if there hadn't been mentioned that there have been, notes and stories on cases that he's covered that he has dozed off. I don't know. I mean, certainly judges much younger than he have dozed off during proceedings. I have had a number of cases.
Is that true?
Myself.
So what do you do when the judge is asleep? What do you go?
Snap your fingers.
What do you do?
Your Honor.
Generally, what one or the other attorney will try to do, you either try to get the attention of a court officer, you get attention of the clerk, and you just sort of motion to the judge. Judges don't fall asleep because they're old necessarily. They fall asleep sometimes because some cases are boring. First, let's just start there, right? Courtrooms get hot. Sometimes you have a very long day. Sometimes you have a very, a difficult schedule. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he falls asleep isn't necessarily indicative of age, although one would think age might be a contributor to that. I think that it has to be a consideration. And I think, Toobin's suggestion, sometimes your colleagues, this often happens with judges because lawyers don't want to, incur the judge's wrath. Other judges will say to the judge, well, perhaps you might want to give this case up.
Yeah.
Or assign a younger judge to it or something like that. But it's a delicate thing because there are judges that are much older, that are much more on the ball, have a much greater sense of fairness than some of the younger judges, that have been appointed recently, have a better sense of how to exercise their discretion, have a better temperament. So age itself is not the sole deciding factor. That said, it's a consideration, and it should be.
Can I disagree? I'm sorry. I mean, 92-year-old people should not be trying cases. I'm really sorry. And I'm sure that's going to aggravate all of our nonagenarian listeners.
And what about the appeal? What about that as part of the appeal?
If a judge wants to be, whatever it's called, past retirement age, where you sort of
Emeritus.
volunteer. No, there's not emeritus. There's another term for when judges come back, and it is an emeritus thing, but whatever. Let them do motion. What's that called?
Recall?
Recall, okay. Let them do, hear motions. Let them do finite things. By the way, I admire the guy that he wants to do public service at 92. At 92 years old, you shouldn't be trying, shouldn't be the judge in a major case. I think age can be the sole determinant. What do you think about this? Break the tie there.
Well, I was thinking you guys are the lawyers. I'm not, but I would think I would be questioning some of his rulings based on his being 92. I think. I also think he should stand up. Everybody should stand up. We stand up.
I don't stand up in Brighton. I stand up at the library.
Yeah, because you're much less likely to get tired if you're standing up than you're sitting down. Judges are sitting down. Wrong thing. They need to have those desks raised so they can be standing up.
By the way, did you think we both saw it? Can I, on an unrelated note, but this will make you happy, so I want to make you happy. When Trump stepped back on Saturday from the podium and allowed Rubio to speak, we both thought he fell asleep standing up. Did you?
Sure that's true, and that's part of that. Sort of goes to my point, is that I would be looking at his performance in recent cases, the cogence and the clarity of the rulings he's made, either from the bench or written rulings that he's issued. Because as I say, I've been in front of judges much younger than he who are not competent, or less competent than they should be on cases. And so, like I said, I don't think it should be the sole factor. I think it is a factor, but I think you have to compare it. There are definitely people who are much older that are much more on the ball than people much younger in their profession. I think it's a case-by-case basis, but I do think it merits looking at just based on the unprecedented nature of the case and the level of complication that's going to present itself.
Okay, so I was very upset, Andrew Cabral, because I'm a big fan of Jack Smith, the prosecutor who went after Trump on the January 6th, the attempt to steal the election and the rioting that went on at the Congress, and also what he did about Trump's having taken classified documents to Mar-a-Lago after he left office the first time. They released all this information in terms of his testimony on New Year's Eve, kind of buried it. But when you read about it, boy, he was extremely impressive, never got riled. It took a lot of incoming from Republicans who didn't like him, and he maintained his cool. So what do you think?
That Jack Smith was the perfect special prosecutor for this case. And but for the GOP majority in SCOTUS and Aileen Cannon in Florida rushing in to protect a criminal president, he would have been, there's no doubt in my mind that he would have been convicted. I mean, he had 4 criminal cases against him, 4 criminal cases. Yep. And here he is talking about a woman who was shot in the head by a federal ICE agent, calling her, saying she was a domestic terrorist and she behaved horribly. He would have been in jail, but for those actions by the topmost federal judiciary, he would probably be doing time right now. And Jack Smith came to Congress and sat there with the very temperament that led him to do as well as he did when he was in The Hague, prosecuting people for war crimes, that with that same temperament, deliberateness, and care laid out to them in ways that they could not refute, no matter how many ridiculous things they threw at him, that he had proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump had committed these crimes. And there's nothing that they can say or do to change that. He was absolutely fabulous. They did what they could to keep people from finding out about it. They released the transcript of his testimony on, I think, New Year's Eve to make sure that nobody would see it. It's a disgrace that any of this happened, but he did, in his own way, have the last word on behalf of the people of the United States of America, and he did the best he could do.
Yeah, I love his line where he says, the evidence here made clear that President Trump was by a large measure the most culpable and most responsible person in this conspiracy. That's the one about trying to steal the election. These crimes were committed for his benefit. The attack that happened at the Capitol, part of this case, does not happen without him. I mean, he just goes on to lay it out so plainly and so clearly. And no matter how much Jim Jordan and everybody else tried to get him riled up, he never took the bait.
Can I say one more thing?
Jim Jordan, who is in year 2 of flaunting his own subpoena, by the way.
That's a very good point.
That's right. That is, thank you for reminding me of that.
You know, we've said a couple of times on the show, more than a couple of times,
What?
in the endless list of behaviors by Donald Trump, sometimes even in the grand scheme of things, smaller ones, not invading a country, not doing what he did yesterday after this killing in Minnesota. This thing about the plaque to this small tribute to the January 6th law enforcement people, 140 of whom were injured, several of whom died in the days after.
Remember the picture?
Small and
beyond the fact you could see them all getting hit over the head and attacked and dragged downstairs and stuff. There was a picture I'll always remember of this police officer standing at the top of the stairs with this mob of people.
Oh, that guy! I wish I remembered his name. Is
yeah, and you just thought and he led them in the wrong direction because he knew where members of Congress had gone. I mean,
he was protecting.
He was protecting them. I mean, it was just he was like heroic. Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, well, Jim, did you complete your thought?
Well, unfortunately, I completed it because I couldn't remember the Capitol police officer's name, and I'm embarrassed, so go right ahead.
Okay.
Oh, okay. No, listen, they're really hard at work trying to disappear, much like they have, disappeared people from the streets of the United States of America. They're trying to disappear history.
It's true.
And they're trying to pretend that this didn't happen. It didn't happen the way we all know that it did happen. In other words, like Richard Pryor said, who are you going to believe, me or your lying out?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very true. By the way, I meant to say flouted his own subpoena, not flaunted his own subpoena when I talked about Jim Jordan. But anyway, and we cannot let that happen.
Well, NPR, you know what NPR is doing? All the stuff that they're erasing from the official White House sites. NPR is archiving all this stuff. Good to our parent organization to protect the history that they are attempting, as you say.
And I hope they're not the only ones. I mean, they always say nothing is. You can always find what you need to find, but it's not that they're not going to give up on trying to rewrite history. I mean, Trump's entire life is a lie, and he's always gotten ahead by doing it. So for him, and for everybody all of the acolytes that work for him, if they just keep at it long enough and they wait it out and they don't give up, they will change what we come to know as the truth. And for them, it's worth it.
Well put, Andrea. It's always wonderful to speak with you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Andrea.
Be well.
We've been speaking with Andrew Cabral, former Public Safety Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, former Sheriff of Suffolk County. Coming up after this quick break, the two co-founders of the aid group, Common Man for Ukraine, just got back from their latest aid delivery there. They're going to tell us about the situation on the ground, how it compares to when they first went there, what they saw, what they did, how they helped children there. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The weekend is coming with stories.
My family took an extreme camping trip. It was like Swiss Family Robinson meets Lord of the Flies.
Gardening.
I never worry about aphids on milkweed. Ladybugs eat aphids. A lot of things do.
And DIY delights.
What are some of the environmental issues with lead paint?
I've got hundreds of pounds of lead on my house. Do I really want the painter to come down and blow it all over the neighborhood?
That's how we do weekends on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Pro Arte Chamber Orchestra, presenting A Musical Menagerie, a family concert co-presented by the Music Performance Trust Fund. January 18th at 3 at Newton War Memorial Auditorium. Reservations at proarte.org. And Brown University pre-college programs, where academically motivated high school students experience college life, nurture their diverse interests, and make new friends. Applications for summer 2026 open January 14th. precollege.brown.edu.
Welcome back to BPR, Jim Browdy and Margaret Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow. And speaking of the library, on January 13th, the Attorney General will be with us for an hour at the library, 11 to 12. Take your questions and ours. And on January 20th, noon to 1, Mayor Wu will join us at the library to take your questions and ours. In December, the New Hampshire-based aid group Common Man for Ukraine traveled to 18 frontline villages to deliver food and supplies, a Christmas convoy that's become a tradition since Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022. In one village, a woman came up to their group singing a Ukrainian song of celebration to thank them for the supplies. That is unbelievably great. We're joined now by two of the group's co-founders, Susan Mathison. Good to see you again, Susan. How have you been? Lisa Murray, welcome to you, Lisa. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
commonmanforukraine.org if you want to learn more.
Yeah, well, we'd like to learn more right now. Just to elaborate a little bit more on what Jim said. What is Common Man for Ukraine? What do you guys do?
We're a New England-based nonprofit. We provide food, warmth, and trauma counseling to children of war in Ukraine. So far, we've delivered about 4 million pounds of food to children in safe houses, orphanages, and frontline villages. And we've provided trauma counseling to children whose fathers have been killed in the war. About 1,300 children have gone through our 3-week trauma counseling retreats in Poland.
So, we almost every day, we either encourage listeners or they encourage themselves to say, what do we do about what's happening on the streets of Minneapolis, what's happening in Ukraine? You guys are real people who decided to do something. What was the I know it because we've discussed it before, but for new listeners, what was the genesis of this? How did this all come about?
Well, we were in our town in New Hampshire, and
can you raise the microphone, Marjorie, for just a drop there? Yeah. You can keep talking. It's good.
Alex Ray is a restaurateur in New Hampshire, and he has a history of going to disaster areas to help out, typically with food preparation and relief. And he was caught up by the story of what was happening to Ukraine, and we all were. And I think his theme has always been people want to help, but they just don't know how. Mm-hmm. And so he and Steve and Susan and I said, well, why don't we go and learn what's happening in Ukraine through Rotary Connections, because Steve and Alex are Rotarians in Plymouth, New Hampshire. So we went there to learn the need, simply to bring back the story to people in New Hampshire and New England, so people could understand it better and make decisions to support Ukraine.
Okay, so before you tell us again what you were doing there and tell us some stories about what you saw, how do you even get to the 18 frontline villages in Ukraine? I mean, we see every night these horrible attacks on them.
It's a miraculous project because so many different volunteers put in their energy to make it happen. You have to fly into Poland. We rent a warehouse there near the border in a tiny village. We source all our materials in Poland so that we don't have to pay tariffs. We don't have to have the time to travel across the ocean. There's everything we need in Europe. So we store them in the warehouse. Then we work with the military to find under-resourced frontline villages and safe houses where they don't have enough food and warmth. So the military says, here are the places that need help. They facilitate our crossing of the border. We submit our itineraries to them so they know where we are, and they often will divert us because we're in a very dangerous place. And then off you go, down 12, 18 hours of driving, down bumpy, unmaintained roads to villages that had been occupied by the Russians. So they're, by our views, destroyed, but people are living there.
How scary is it?
We're always aware. It's very scary. If I look back to the first time I was ever there and the first air raid siren I heard and thinking, oh no, and now they're a part of everyday life while we're there.
And what we feel like is we have good to do. We have food in these trucks. These hundreds or thousands of people lined up need that food. The air raid sirens are blaring. I can hear the bombs in the distance. I need to get them this food as fast as I can, give them a hug, and get out of there.
How do you deal with do you feel fear? Did you feel fear, Lisa?
There have been a couple of times when the air raid sirens are pretty close, and I've learned over time that if the louder they are, the closer they are, and therefore the closer you are to a potential strike.
How do you deal with it?
I think in any situation, we look at the people around us, and Ukrainians are so used to it. We've become like them. We're very used to it. We don't really react. I don't think there's been a time yet that we've actually gone down to a bomb shelter when we've been in hotels, even though they tell us to, because we're just used to it. Sometimes we even sleep through it.
When were you there the first time, Lisa?
It was late March of 2022.
When were you there the first time?
Same trip.
Could you describe the differences between what you saw in March of 2022, starting with you, Lisa, and the most recent trip?
Sure. Our first trip, we stayed, I think, just for safety reasons. We had just met these people in Poland, days before we crossed the border, and I think they wanted to be sure that we were safe. So we were only in Lviv. And, I didn't sense any kind of, safety issues. But what we did see right away was how the city that we had never been to before looked prepared for war. There were sandbags everywhere. There was plywood around the churches. Everything was, pretty dark at night with curfews. So it wasn't, nervous in any way at that time. But now, because we go to the Far East to deliver to these remote villages, we're very close to the front, and also the war has changed so much. Currently, it is a drone warfare, so they may be fighting that war on the front during the day, but every night the war is focused on the cities in the east for the most part, and those drones are coming every night, and so the air raid sirens run every night.
Susan, when you say you bring food and warmth, you're talking about coats, blankets, and what kind of food?
We provide non-perishable food, about a month's supply per person. If they have
Like what? What kind of food?
We provide muesli, groat, canned meat, canned vegetables, so non-perishables.
Okay.
The meat is most prized. They really want that protein. And the carbohydrate is a favorite Ukrainian carbohydrate. It's a very generic grain that they can make many things.
Okay. Clothing as well, or is it blankets or that kind of thing?
So when Putin, our aid has changed as the war has changed and people's needs have changed. So at first we just did food. Then when Putin started bombing the infrastructure, and it's winter in Ukraine, just winter like New England, we had to turn to generators so that the kids could at least have light. And then we turned to sleeping bags. We brought 10,000 sleeping bags.
Wow.
And now a German Rotary Club has donated blankets. So in our next convoy, we'll also be donating blankets. And another miracle that happened is we asked people to knit some hats for the people in Ukraine. And from all over the United States, 6,000 handmade works of art arrived at our door, and we transported them on this last trip to the frontline villages. And what a sight that is, these acts of love, this hand-knit hat, all the way from Illinois into the hands of a little child in Ukraine. Just amazing.
Well, who made 6,000 hats?
We don't know.
What do you know? No.
Miraculous people who heard about Common Man for Ukraine and mailed me a bag of 3 hats or 30 hats. One woman collected over 2,300 handmade hats.
It's just incredible.
Wow.
Do the people, Marjorie and I, who don't have the resourcefulness or the courage that you two and your colleagues do, feel our country has abandoned the Ukrainian people under Donald Trump. I mean, our country under Donald Trump. Do the Ukrainian people feel that we have left them to their own devices? How do they feel now as compared to when we were, I think, side by side?
I think they understand the relationship has changed. I think they're agnostic to that. I think they feel like we are going to win this war with or without whoever joins us.
Do they really feel that way?
Absolutely. Every Ukrainian we've ever spoken to, from the youngest to the oldest, and military-aged men, when we win this war.
Wow. We're talking to Susan Mathison and Lisa Mure from the Common Man for Ukraine.org organization. So you do trauma work with children. Tell us about some of these children, what they're telling you, what their situation is.
Sure. The kids come every month into a different group of kids into Poland, to a retreat area with Ukrainian counselors. And we've been there visiting the children's retreats at least, probably 14 times or maybe 12. And the children are all between the ages of 8 and 12. They have all lost their fathers or sometimes a mother in the fighting. And they do recreational activities together. It's a really beautiful area that they're taken to, and they're very grateful that they don't have to worry about air raid sirens. They can still stay in touch with their moms over their phones, and they get to relax. They get to reset their nervous systems. They do art therapy, music therapy. They go on hikes together, and really they develop a community of young people who are surviving a loss, but they're also rediscovering what they want to do with their lives. And it's a really beautiful, energizing thing to watch.
Can you tell us a story about what one of the kids may have told you or their situation that has stayed with you?
Sure. It was August of 2023, and there was a group of kids. We spent a little bit more time with them, and Bogdan was a boy who had lost his father only months before the retreat, and he had also lost an older brother. Oh. Yeah, and so, but he had bonded with another one of the kids at the retreat, and they were sharing their stories, and it was really it's heartbreaking to watch it, but it's also heartwarming for them to, for us to see them bonding with other children and kind of processing their losses.
Well, the other one of the most upsetting things is the children who've been kidnapped and taken to Russia. So some of these kids may have lost siblings through kidnapping.
Absolutely.
Have you talked to any of those kids?
We do have, I don't have experience with kids who have siblings that are missing. We certainly have experience with kids whose fathers are missing. Yeah. I also wanted to add on to something that Lisa brought up about the kids, and we have these long-term relationships with them, and part of our quality control is to follow up with them months after they've been in our retreat.
Nice.
So we visit them in their homes and meet their moms, and we had a listening session with a collection of mothers of these children that had been through our retreats, and they gave the retreats wonderful reviews and how good it was for their kids, but they said, what about us?
Oh,
these widows are living in a war zone with children, maybe with in-laws. How do they support themselves? Where is it safe to be? Should they move? Should they leave the country? Giant burden of trauma. And so we decided beginning last August that we'd start a widow's retreat for these mothers. And it's sort of one of those, it was so obvious, but we hadn't come to it yet. But now we're counseling a family, the children and the widowed mothers, and now they have a better system, a stronger system to move forward.
I can't believe you people, but how many founders are there of this operation?
There's 4 of us.
What did you do before this?
I'm a retired forester with the Forest Service.
Jesus. And how about you? What do you do?
I was working in public health as a consultant.
And how about the other 2 people?
Alex still owns a very large restaurant company, hospitality group in New Hampshire, and Steve.
And Steve owns a family hardware store.
Yeah.
So wait a second, a guy owned a hardware store,
Yeah.
a public health worker, a restaurant owner, and a former forest worker.
What are you talking about, Jim? We brought some chocolates for our
We're all volunteers.
I know you are. Say that again.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
No one is paid except our media guy because we're all Neanderthals and we don't know how to do
How
websites.
many tons of stuff have you brought there?
4 million tons and 1,300 kids through our program so far, and now 50 widows. We're so proud of it, but it's not us, Jim. Please don't say that.
I knew you were going to say this, by the way.
Because it's all the truck drivers, these volunteer truck drivers that leave their homes and families and volunteer to go into a war zone to feed kids they'll never know. It's these psychologists that come from Ukraine to work with the future of Ukraine that volunteer to do that. It's this little old lady.
Hold up those things. Hold those up for the camera. What are they?
They're peace dolls. They're darling.
Made by whom?
Made by a little bunch of church ladies in New Hampshire. But here's the thing, the poignant thing about this. On the back, they put this tag that says, sending you strength, love, and prayers for peace in Ukraine, in English. And it also says it in Ukrainian.
Oh.
And so one day, we have these by the hundreds. And one day I handed this to a little 8-year-old, 9-year-old girl. And I said, oh, look, isn't it beautiful doll? Oh, she loves the doll. And I say, look, read this. She's 8 years old. She can't read.
Oh.
The war is 4 years old. This girl is 8. Before the war was COVID. Now extrapolate that over a country and think of the challenges ahead for reconstruction, where an entire generation of children have missed this important building block of life. There's a lot of work to do.
You know, can I stay on this?
Go ahead.
Yesterday we had 3 people, among others, who have been arrested at a Burlington ICE facility, have gone there purely trying to feed people food. And we asked them the question, what separates you from those of us who want to do things like you but don't do them? Speak to that for the person who's listening, saying, why can't I am among them. Why can't I conjure up the something to do what you 4 are doing? Not there, anywhere, that about something.
Well, I think you can.
I know, but why then? Talk to people for a second about how they get from where they are on their couch to where you are.
Well, I think the answer is actually what you said. It's talking to other people. And I think how we got started in this is that we started talking just to each other. And then you think about connections that you already have. And Steve and Alex already had connections in Rotary, and that is an international organization. Yeah. So they cold called people in Poland and Ukraine and said, hey, we're both Rotarians. Let's make something happen.
What was your
together.
expectation when you began this thing? What did you hope that Common Man for Ukraine would do? Obviously, it was not millions of tons of anything. What did you hope you'd achieve?
I had no expectations other than we were going to raise as much money as we could, and we were going to rely on some partners in Poland. And it started out very different. The war was very different at the beginning. Even aid was different. There were millions of refugees coming across the border into Poland. So a lot of their work was in Poland, standing up emergency relief shelters and so forth. And they were raising money to send blood mobiles to the front in Ukraine. And so it was very different. But through our partnerships and our trips, we learned more and more what the needs were. And we also learned what was already being met by other organizations. And we saw the gap in supporting the children and their mental health needs.
You know, Susan, you mentioned the little girl who couldn't read. I'm day-to-day life. I mean, I see these horrible pictures on television. Is there anything normal about life over there? Can people go to their store to work or anywhere to school, or what's...
It's quite varied. So if you're in Lviv in the evening, the generators will be running.
Yeah.
But you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a hotel, you can go to a performance at the Opera House. Everything looks fine. If you are there at 9 o'clock in the morning, anywhere in Ukraine, the entire country comes to a complete stop. You stand wherever you are, and for 1 minute, they have a moment of silence. The entire country, the grocery store, school buses stop. Everything stops for 1 minute. And the air raid alarm system plays a ticking clock. Tick, tick,
oh
tick.
My God.
And at the end of the 1 minute, they say, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes, and people walk again.
Mm-hmm.
So other than, obviously people can do money, commonmanforukraine.org, commonmanforukraine.org. What else can people do who would like to participate or help or whatever, Lisa?
Well, I'm going to give that one to Susan because we just put out something on the internet for Beanie Babies. We collect Beanie Babies, new Beanie Babies to take over to the kids, and we collect the peace dolls and knitted hats. But she probably knows best what we're collecting right now.
How about it, Susan?
Solar lanterns is our next big fundraising effort. If you'd like to support a solar lantern for a child at the front line so they have control over the darkness, $15 will do it. You could go to our website, buy a t-shirt, a hat, buy a solar lantern, you'll make a difference for a kid.
And I think just keeping...
Ukraine.org. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just keeping the conversation going about Ukraine and not forgetting them is another thing that people can do. Just listening, sharing stories, and just caring about them is really important.
You know, we're getting texts from listeners asking us to say it slowly. So it is all one word, Common Man for Ukraine.
F-O-R.
Yep, that's right. It's just like it sounds. commonmanforukraine.org is the name of the organization. I'm so glad you came in. And I'm
We're
so glad
grateful.
you're doing what you're
So
doing.
grateful.
Yeah, we're grateful to you.
Thanks for remembering the kids.
And we have been speaking with Susan Mathison and Lisa Mure. They are volunteers with, as we said before, commonmanforukraine.org. Thank you very much.
Thanks for everything, guys.
Dziękuję.
It's great to see you both.
After a quick break, just enough time left for our Two More Things segment. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Please accept this gift.
Filmmaker Shireen Dibus was about to begin shooting a movie about generational trauma among Palestinians when the war in Gaza began.
You know, some days we were shooting scenes that we were watching come across our news feeds, things that were happening in Gaza.
I'm Juana Summers, the new film All That's Left of You, on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And St. Andrew's School in Barrington, Rhode Island. A middle and high school with day and boarding options, plus after-school and weekend programs. Open house January 14th. standrews-ri.org. And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Time for two more things. Marjorie's going to start with one more thing.
Well, I wanted to mark the very sad passing of L. Simone Scott. We had her on the show a couple of times. As Deborah first wrote in the Globe, trailblazing chef, food stylist, cookbook author, first black woman to join the cast of PBS cooking show America's Test Kitchen. She was only 49 years old. She did a lot to increase the chances for women of color in the hospitality industry. Here we have a little bit of sound. She did those charcuterie boards.
That was great.
Yeah,
I love that.
And such a life force. You know, it really was. Anyway, here she is on BPR in 2022 talking about how food looks. It's just as important as how it tastes.
You do want people to feel invited to that dish. You know, you want people to want to make it. You know, cooking can be daunting from time to time, depending on what kind of life you live on a day-to-day, and you have to have some appeal. There's got to be some draw to make people want to cook it, to eat it.
You know, I want to also mention that she started a group called She Chef because she wanted to get more women of color involved in cooking, and it was a great organization. And she had ovarian cancer for 10 years, and as I said, just has passed away.
She was great. And it was great to get to know her in a little tiny way. And she was.
And it was like a trend, these charcuterie boards everybody was making for so long with cheeses and little olives and all these things.
I'm really glad you did that, Marjorie. Now I'm going to do something. Marjorie's going to criticize me because she started to criticize me yesterday when I was going to do this and there wasn't enough time. But this actually matters. We're one of the 20-some states, 26 I think, that allows people to make laws, repeal laws, amend the Constitution on the ballot. Yesterday or the day before, the Secretary of State certified a record number, meaning the most number of questions that are on their way, still could be issues, but are on their way, likely to be on next November's ballot. Do you know how many questions are going to be on the ballot?
I think it's 11.
11
It's a lot of questions. You have to study up.
So not only are we always saying how difficult it is, how do I know about down ballot, below governor, and that sort of thing? How do I know who to vote for governor's council, this sort of thing? These issues, and this is where Marjorie's going to mock me and she's wrong. Listen to how important some of these issues are. Statewide zoning changes. All-party primaries, totally changing the way we do primaries. rent control statewide, a public records law that would apply to the legislature. You know, we have the worst public records laws in the country. Election day registration, a multi-billion-dollar cut in the income tax, affect the stipends that legislators have, repealing, talk about ridiculous, repealing the recreational marijuana law. That may not make it because the opponents are arguing that the signature collectors fraudulently collected the signatures by saying it was for something else. So I think that's being challenged.
Do you know what they said it was for?
Well, I don't remember. Whatever it was, something that was non-controversial and had nothing to do with it. At least that's the allegation. And you know why? I mean, I want to quote Galvin. He says he believes that inaction on the part of the legislature really is why we have so many questions, and we're going to have this mess where people are going to be so overwhelmed and confused. And the reason I bring this up is before the questions actually go out for another round of signature collection and then go to the ballot, there's an opportunity for the legislature to either pass these things into law or sit down with the proponents and try to strike a compromise that satisfies the popular will. And I would urge these people, for the most part, really arrogant, when actual activists stand up and want to do something, to sit down with them and try to reach some reasonable pro-people compromises.
Some of them are so easy. I mean, everybody in America is talking about get rid of cell phones in the school. Can we do that?
That's not on the ballot.
No, it's not on the ballot.
Well, how about a public records law?
Why can't they just pass
a public records law?
Well, public records law is a great idea, but when you say that cell phones in schools are making kids so they can't even read anymore and they can't learn their lessons and their mental health and all that, that seems like a no-brainer. Why can't they do that? By the way,
one of our colleagues just gave us is the allegation from the opponents of the recreational marijuana repeal. The people collecting signatures, they allege, were saying they would get fentanyl off the streets, provide affordable housing in their communities, and fund public parks. That's an allegation. We don't know there's going to be litigation. Thank you for that. So check it out. And by the way, whatever makes it to the ballot, Evan Horowitz will join us from Tufts.
Yeah, he's great.
Who does the best analysis of all these questions. But having said that, let's hope there's some resolution in the meantime.
Okay, coming up after the 1 o'clock news, Amherst College Elon Sullivan joins us to talk about how Latin America is reacting to Trump's Venezuela actions and threats of more military involvement there. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Join GBH for Behind the Curtain, an inside look into the making of the new hit musical, Wonder. You'll be joined by their acclaimed creative team for an interactive virtual discussion. Get your ticket now at gbh.org/events.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on hour 3 of BPR. We start the 1 o'clock hour with Elon Sullivan, Amherst College professor of Latin American and Latino culture, on how Venezuela's neighbors are receiving Trump's threats of more military action in the region.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's my favorite day of the week, Am I the A-Hole Day, where we ask you to weigh in on who's the bigger jerk. This week, a girlfriend thinks her boyfriend doesn't take showers correctly. He says he's a quick shower kind of guy, but keeps himself clean. She and her nose disagree. Should he do a better job under the water, or is she out of line for wanting a better focus on his bits and pits? Weighing in the third hour at BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. In Minnesota, protests continue in Minneapolis for another day after 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent while in her car yesterday. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem today again defended the ICE agent, saying he was just doing his job. Yesterday, she said Good drove at the agent, which local and state officials dispute. Meanwhile, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has issued an order to prepare the state's National Guard for deployment. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf has more.
Governor Walz, a Democrat, issued a warning order for Minnesota's National Guard, putting them on standby for a possible deployment. At a press conference in Minneapolis following the shooting, Walz stressed that the troops remain under state control.
I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops.
In recent months, President Trump has federalized several other states' National Guard troops, often against the wishes of Democratic governors, and deployed them to protect federal immigration officials and property. Walz spoke to Trump directly in the press conference, saying Minnesota does not need any more involvement from the federal government. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Washington.
The Senate today voted to advance a resolution requiring the Trump administration to secure congressional approval before taking further military action in Venezuela. The measure needed just a simple majority and cleared the chamber by a vote of 52-47, with 5 Republicans joining Democrats to advance the measure. It's a procedural step to start debate on a final passage, though a final vote hasn't yet been scheduled. On social media, Trump slammed Republicans who voted for it, calling it a War Powers Act unconstitutional. Now, the bill would face a steep climb in the GOP-controlled House and a likely veto from President Trump. Meanwhile, American military forces are now escorting an oil tanker to the U.S. after a 2-week chase. This is part of a U.S. crackdown on ghost ships transporting oil from Venezuela. NPR's Greg Myrie reports.
The U.S. forces prepared to seize the Bella 1 oil tanker in the Caribbean in late December as it was heading to Venezuela to pick up oil. But the tanker refused to halt. Instead, it changed course and headed out to the Atlantic with U.S. forces in pursuit. Somewhere along the way, the tanker changed its name from the Bella 1 to the Marinera and also changed its flag from that of Guyana to Russia. U.S. troops boarded the ship Wednesday in the North Atlantic between Britain and Iceland. Now in American custody, the ship and the crew are headed to the U.S. The U.S. has seized 4 oil tankers linked to Venezuela since this campaign began last month. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Washington.
And you're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Protesters will gather outside Worcester City Hall tonight to rally against Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, after an agent for the organization shot and killed Renee Nicole Good yesterday. 37-year-old mother of 3 from Minnesota. According to community organizer and Worcester Indivisible member Misty Green, the protest will begin at 6 p.m. A poster for the rally sent by Green to Mass Live reads, "Stop ICE Terror, Justice for Renee Nicole Good." And the Worcester-based insurance provider Fallon Health is joining Mass General Brigham. The previously independent not-for-profit health plan announced the merger with Mass General Brigham today. Boston Business Journal reports that the acquisition comes as nonprofit health plans across the Commonwealth are struggling financially. The 2 largest plans, Blue Cross Blue Shield and Point32 Health, both posted significant losses in 2025 as healthcare spending accelerated. Fallon was founded in 1977. In sports, the Bruins host the Calgary Flames at the Boston Garden tonight. The Fiesta Bowl also tonight on TV. That's the college football bowl game, Miami taking on Mississippi. In the forecast, it is a warm-up today, sunny to partly cloudy. It's actually pretty nice out there right now. High today, 45 degrees, clouding up overnight tonight, low 29. Chance of rain tomorrow with temperatures back into the 40s. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, working to help protect small businesses and the owners that run them, offering customizable coverages to salons, accounting firms, tradespeople, and more. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
Hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple more programming notes. The Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, is going to join us at the library January 13th, 11 to noon. And the Mayor, Michelle Wu, will join us January 20th, noon to 1, also at the library. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. We're joined now on Zoom by Elon Stavans, Professor of Humanities in Latin American and Latino Culture at Amherst College. Also the co-author of the cookbook, Sabor Judío. Pretty good today, yes, Elon?
Pretty good today, Jim.
The Jewish-Mexican cookbook. It's great to see you.
Likewise.
So let's just start with the basics. What do you think about what happened in Venezuela?
Oh, my God, Marjorie. This is really a throwback to the earliest parts of the 20th century, maybe the Cold War. And if we go even farther to the Mexican-American War of 1946 and 48, I am currently in Mexico City, and I can tell you there is a sense of uncertainty, of insecurity, of fragility in the country, because the leader that we have nationwide in the United States is just by saying a statement threatening the continuity of a nation that has been around for over 200 years here.
By the way, his line about Mexico, which we'll get back to in a minute, is we have to do something about the cartels running Mexico, even though he apparently has a very good relationship with Claudia Sheinbaum. Can we stay, though, on Venezuela just for a second? There are so many things I don't understand. First of all, let's play Marco Rubio, who most people think was the driving force here. Here's Rubio talking to reporters following this closed-door briefing with senators. He describes a threefold process, the words he used: stabilization, recovery, transition, whatever that means. Here he is describing it.
Step one is the stabilization of the country. We don't want it descending into chaos. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime.
Okay, what does that mean? And I guess tied to that is Trump said yesterday we could be in Venezuela, quote, for years. What's the plan?
The plan here, it used to be, Jim, that Americans at least had a facade of wanting to bring democracy to the different republics in the Western Hemisphere. Now it's a brazen statement that we are after the oil. Trump and Rubio are after the oil. The younger people in the United States believe in other forms of energy, wind and solar. The oil is not the future of this country. It's not the future of the world. And yet, at the same time, the idea that you go into a country to take away the oil from that country because it belongs to the United States, it is atrocious. It is against the sovereignty of other countries, and it gives the impression that the United States is just deciding how to deal with Venezuela, and from Venezuela, it will go to other countries. It makes me feel ashamed of my own country. By this, I mean the United States.
You know, I heard an interview, Steve Inskeep, our NPR colleague, with a journalist who only wanted to go by his middle name because he's nervous in Venezuela about repercussions from the regime that is still in place there. But he sounded like he thought, well, people are so in desperate straits financially there that they might think, well, if we can get a little bit of oil money, I mean, okay, it's still a corrupt, repressive regime, but we may have a little bit more money in our pockets. I mean, what do you think about that argument?
Marjorie, it's hard to really understand the mixed signals that are coming both from Venezuela, the government by Daisy Rodriguez, who used to be the vice president, and
apologies for that.
Daisy Rodriguez, the vice president, who apparently is rallying the troops under the same banner of communism and the same type of repression, with the statements that come from Rubio and come from Donald Trump that now the regime over there is doing exactly what we want, and that we might stay there not 1 month, not 6 months, not a year, but long term. This is a president that campaigned on the idea of non-interventionism, that we didn't want to have troops. And for troops, it's not only soldiers, it's also business people that arrive and take over. Now, poor Venezuela has been in a state of a free-for-all when it comes to its economy. And I can perfectly understand both within the country and the many people in exile, more than 5 million people have left Venezuela during the Maduro regime, that they want to see a change and that they are ready to, in a quid pro quo, give away some of that oil in favor of some openness and some wealth that will come to them. What exactly it's going to result out of all this is very difficult to know. Who is having the real temperature of the country? It's really a puzzle.
A couple more things on Venezuela, Elon Stavins, before we move to the larger Latin American world. Why is Machado not the leader of the country? From what I understand, she's the most popular political person in the country. Is the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize. She has adhered to the cardinal rule of getting Trump's support. She has praised him unendingly, dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, and he went out of his way in that Saturday press availability to say she's not respected by the people of Venezuela, totally cutting her knees out from under. Why is she not the leader of the country?
To me, that is one of the biggest questions, and it seems that the group surrounding Trump, especially Marco Rubio, discussed this in great detail even before the operation that took Maduro out from Caracas into the New York City jail where he is. I think there's some sort of envy from Trump not to have won the Nobel Prize. He was dying to get that Nobel Prize, and she got it. She dedicated it to him, and he felt as if he had been sidelined. On the other hand, it gives me the impression that she might, if she were to be brought in by the Americans, she would probably take the spotlight from him and from Rubio. I don't quite understand that really unreasonable step. It would advance. I think she has offered to bring in U.S. companies to Argentina, to Venezuela. So to me, it seems unwise. She is the legitimate, to the extent that there's legitimacy, the legitimate winner, together with the person, the other person that he that was the actual candidate,
Eduardo Gonzalez.
For being the leader in the country. Very puzzling, and I think, frankly, a very bad move.
We're talking to Elon Stavins, professor of humanities and Latin American and Latino culture at Amherst College. You know, you referenced we seem to be going back decades in the United States, and I assume you're talking about the Monroe Doctrine, which is quite old, which now Trump is calling, of course, the Donroe Doctrine.
Donroe,
so
him.
explain to people what the Monroe Doctrine is.
Yeah, the Monroe Doctrine was a doctrine proposed by the United States that established that no European empire, no European nation had the right to go to Latin America and take away its resources, run those countries, because America was for the Americans, and America understood as the entire continent, not only the United States. Many decades later, that idea has mutated to a new way where the United States is the one that feels is the only one that can orchestrate the life in the region. And of course, Trump just loves for everything to be named after him. So if he can move from the Monroe to the Donroe, he feels even more connected about it.
So, Elon Stavins, that's a perfect segue to talk about what you started with, the pronouncements by Trump, Stephen Miller, Rubio about Cuba, Colombia, Mexico. Since you brought up Mexico, it again appears that Sheinbaum has been, as we've said to you before, one of the few international leaders who did not have to play the sycophant to have Trump say good things about her. She appears to be listening to him about moving troops to the border to deal with those issues. She appears, as best she can, to be dealing with the drug issues. So when he said, as I said before, we have to do something about the cartels running Mexico, this was just him, I assume, running off at the mouth. There's no real... Mexico's not in his sights in any way.
I don't think Mexico in his sight. is in his side. Claudia Sheinbaum keeps on repeating publicly. She gives a very early press conference on a daily basis that what should be very aware and sensitive and nervous about what's happening, but that doesn't mean that it is going to happen next day. If it were to happen, Jim, I think it would be an absolute disaster. If Trump has been wanting to stop immigration from Latin America, especially from Mexico to the United States, I can see a destabilized Mexico that would have thousands, millions of Mexicans wanting to run out of the country into the United States. It would be incredibly unwise. This is a very stable and trustworthy partner, is the biggest economic partner of the United States. So I think it's rhetoric. But of course, with Trump, you never know where rhetoric stops and where the next action is going to take place. And so people here, again, I'm in Mexico, are naturally very anxious.
And what about the other countries down there? That Politico is reporting how really Latin America has been cautious and silent. That Cuba, Colombia, Mexico not banding together really in a way that some thought they would.
One of the effects of all this, Marjorie, is that it has pushed Latin America to establish its polarities even more emphatically than before. If the leader is on the right, like Milei in Argentina, then they are full-fledged supporters of Donald Trump and saying the invasion and the takeover of Maduro, it was on the right side and it took too long to take place. If people are on the left, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, then the concerted voice is that this is unwise and that Latin America is for Latin Americans, not for the United States. In today's New York Times, there is a long and front page article about a phone conversation that Trump had with the president of Colombia, where now, again, it's about he respects Pietro. He's inviting him to the White House. It was a telephone conversation that lasted several hours. This is a huge thing for Trump. When Trump devotes that much time, he is not focusing on destroying anything else.
By the way, just the specifics on that. On the plane, I think coming back from Florida the other day, Trump referred to the president of Colombia as a, quote, sick man.
Right.
And yesterday, after he hung up, after that long conversation, it was, quote, a great honor to speak to the president of Colombia. I mean, by the way, which further underscores my belief that when people respond to Trump as on policy as if a normal person is making these pronouncements, this is an unstable person who I think is of great danger
unstable,
to us in the
deranged.
world.
Yeah,
absolutely. Suffering from dementia.
Argentina, we just gave them a whole. How much
if he
money
gave
do we
me
give them?
$20 billion, I'd be nice to him
Exactly, in
too, by
order
the
to
way.
have them on our side.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And whoever might be today's enemy, tomorrow might become the greatest friend. And one thing that I think, Jim, is important to remember, and we all run out of words when trying to describe Trump's policies, is that he's really not a politician. He has no interest in being subtle, no interest in negotiations. He is a businessman, a moneymaker. He wants something and he's going to run for that something. And he's unblocked. He tells you what his subconscious is telling him rather than trying to be polite and diplomatic.
Well, interestingly, on that note, we had Dan Dresner on the other day, who's head of the Tufts Fletcher School of Diplomacy, and we were talking about Venezuela a day or two, maybe it was 2 days after the Saturday action. And he said his take was that this was a Rubio-inspired thing, and Rubio and maybe Miller and others got together and said, how do we get Trump on board? We start talking about oil, which is what he cares about, and then they got him there. Can we spend one last country that we have given short shrift to?
Yeah, Cuba.
I mean,
some of the examples we should give some. I was shocked, embarrassed. I didn't know any of this stuff. That the situation is so bad that the lights are out, electricity is gone, 14, 15 hours a day. That you have to buy gasoline, you have to sign up for an appointment. And one a resident said he joined the lineup 3 months ago, and he's now number 5,052 in line. And that the government gives out rice and beans, but that it's only lasting 10 days into the month. And people have no money. They can't pick up the garbage. People are getting all these terrible diseases.
Marjorie,
horrible.
Cuba has been a failed state for decades, is in a state of abject poverty, lawlessness, and yet people, when they go out on the street to protest, there's repression, and they can't go much farther. There's no oil in Cuba, so one would think, why would Trump go there? But there is Rubio in the Washington cabinet, and Rubio comes from a family that left Cuba in 1958-59 with the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, and he would love, in my view, to reverse what many presidents of the United States haven't been able to do from the Bay of Pigs with Kennedy onwards, and that is to take away the communist regime and bring in again American companies. So for me, this is a very different story, but it's likely the next chapter of this story, simply because, and it's not because Trump is going to be that interested, but it's because Rubio is very interested, and he could prove, if he has higher political aspirations, that he did something that no American president was able to achieve before, finally bringing capitalism to an island in the Caribbean that spread its vision of Marxism for decades, and it has been absolutely a failure economically.
So, and by the way, the economic failure gets even worse without Venezuela, obviously, there to support
because
them.
they were
So
supporting.
how does that happen? Does it fall as, I don't know if Senator Rick Scott was saying it's going to fall in the next few months, on its own, under its own weight, or with some intervention from the United States? What's the...
What I imagine here, and it's almost as like a science fiction story, Jim, is that at the simple flying of helicopters, following the same path of the Bay of Pigs, just to have a set here that could look Hollywood-like, would make the regime finally collapse, and all these exiles from Miami take a boat and go back to Cuba and reclaim the properties that have been taken away. There's not going to be too much fighting. Many people in Cuba are desperate for a regime change. So I think it's going to be, if it happens, a really minor military operation, but it will be a major news case for this administration. No oil, but a lot of little celebratory statements there of, look what previous administrations were not able to achieve.
What about the Cuban people, though? It does not sound like things would get much worse. So would that be a good thing for the Cuban people?
Look, I think I visited Cuba many times in the last, 2 or 3 decades. It's really very sad. It's a state, it's a city, Havana, in ruins. There's no water, there's no food. There are 2 economies, the economy of the tourists and the economy of the native population. Cars that were running in the 1950s have been refurbished in order to serve as taxis. So the island in and of itself is a kind of dystopia, utopia. I don't believe there's going to be much nostalgia for what happened during the communist years. But of course, there's also this anti-Americanism there and everywhere in Latin America. We want to have our own destiny chosen by us and not by the Americans.
While we have you, Elon, the last couple of minutes, we've been spending much of today talking about this nightmare in Minnesota, obviously, yesterday. What was your reaction to what you heard? And I don't know if you've seen the video in Mexico City, but your reaction to what happened there with ICE and this 37-year-old mother.
My reaction is a sigh of desperation, Jim. The rhetoric and the version that comes out from the State Department and from ICE is one, and the one that comes out from the street and from the legitimate democratic feeling on at the local level are very different. People are sick and tired of the treatment that they are getting from ICE, and they are sick and tired of getting their narrative constantly be refurbished by the White House. It's saddening, and I'm hoping that one of these events will finally tip the scale in the other direction.
One last thing from me. I was surprised that the one of the big Spanish dailies, El País, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, was talking about the judge that's sitting on the Nicolas Maduro case. He's 92 years old, which is pretty old. But they didn't criticize him for being 92 years old. They talked about his being impartial, quote, despite being Jewish, unquote, which kind of stunned me. What'd you think?
Actually, I really thank you for bringing in this topic. It was the state of Israel once again becoming the fact checker of the world, telling others how to perceive what is being fair in justifiable from the perspective of Jews. They attacked this judge because he's an Orthodox Jew, meaning that he wouldn't be able to be impartial when dealing with a case like Maduro's. Absolutely ridiculous. And I have to tell you, Marjorie, as a diaspora Jew, a man who believes in the state of Israel, but it also believes that diaspora Jews can talk about ourselves and for ourselves. I don't want Israel to be deciding how to perceive anti-Semitism. Israel itself has generated much anti-Semitism. Let the corrections be made because they need to be made, but not as in the case of the Netanyahu regime and Mandami, always accusing one body or another of anti-Semitism because it doesn't fit the Netanyahu picture of how the world should be established. I think diaspora Jews are very uncomfortable. They are happy that the correction has taken place, but they are unhappy that it's the state of Israel's, the government, that is taking the responsibility to go out and correct the statements. At least I am.
Can we spend the last 2 minutes on a totally different note? Over Christmas, I saw a bunch of people who I hadn't seen in a while, and the common thread, which was totally surprising to me, I don't even know how it came up, every single set of people I saw had just come back from Mexico City. And some of them had come back from Mexico City for their third trip. I didn't know they had been there the first and second time. What's Mexico City like in 2026?
Jim, that is the real invasion, the tourist invasion. The amount of people that are arriving to this country and how they are changing prices, they are changing rents, they are even changing the way people put salsa in their taco. They're asking restaurants not to be that spicy. Mexico has become, with Sheinbaum, a very magnetic country. It's a wonderful country. People are wonderful here. The food is terrific. The history is terrific. And I think it has suddenly been rediscovered because other parts of the world are more dangerous and because Mexico truly is a genuine source of history and of stability. It's amazing the amount of tourists in this country.
Yeah. I was in Mexico right before Trump got elected the first time, and I remember telling everybody at the resort I was at, all these Mexican people that I was talking with, we're never going to elect that. The United States will never elect that guy. And I was thinking, what a fool I was.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to go, so let's talk, okay?
I'll give you all sorts of pointers. Fabulous. It's a terrific place, and the food is exquisite.
Elon,
Thank
we
you
really
very
appreciate
much.
your time. Thanks so much. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you to both of you.
We've been speaking with Elon Stavins, Professor of Humanities and Latin American Culture at Amherst College. He's also the author of the cookbook, Sabor Judío, the Jewish-Mexican Cookbook. Elon, thank you very much. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to open the lines for our BPR Thursday favorite, Am I the A-hole? Today's prompt comes from a woman who thinks her boyfriend is showering the wrong way, not getting into the nooks and crannies, the bits and bits, as it were. We're going to talk about who's the jerk here. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Renee Nicole Good, the unarmed woman shot by ICE agents in Minnesota, was a mother of 3 and an acclaimed poet. I'm Arun Roth. Today on GBH's All Things Considered, we'll have the latest on the shooting and the victim, as well as local reaction to what happened. Also on the show, Governor Healy has a plan to protect residents from rising healthcare costs as ACA tax subsidies expire. It's all starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And American Repertory Theater with Wonder, a new musical for the whole family based on the best-selling book and beloved movie. The Wall Street Journal calls it heartfelt and uplifting. Tickets at amrep.org. And the Massachusetts Health Connector for Business. Premium value plans can help small business owners find and offer accessible employee health benefits. Learn more at mahealthconnector.org/business.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. Is that right? Yes, it is. It's Thursday, and that means Am I the A-hole day. Today's prompt comes to us from The Guardian's You Be the Judge column. A woman named Audrey writes in with concerns about her boyfriend cleans himself in the shower, Marjorie. Noah, that would be the boyfriend, she writes, isn't unclean. I want to repeat that. She acknowledges he is not unclean.
Yeah.
But there is no scrubbing. She is very big pro-scrub. No scrubbing, no, quote, real getting into the cracks and orifices. This
That's
is a quote
right.
from her. He just, quote, rubs a gel around and insists the water will, quote, find its way to the places that need cleaning. He also does not exfoliate. I don't even know what
Exfoliation is huge.
What is it?
It's like having a nice, strong bristle brush to get the dead skin
Okay,
off.
well, he doesn't do that either.
Yeah, you got to exfoliate, Jim.
So give us
Everyone's talking about your lack of exfoliation.
Okay, fine. I mean, talk about it then. I'm fine with it. Give us a call. Is Noah being a jerk for not getting soap deep into the, let's call them the bits and pits, the holes and soles while bathing? Or is his girlfriend a little too nosy? Noah insists he showers daily. Audrey admits he does not smell unclean. So what's the issue? 877-301-8970. Who's the a-hole here? The quick showerer or the, let's call her the picky girlfriend, Audrey? 877-301-8970. Who would be the a-hole in your estimation?
You start, Jim. You always ask me to start. You start.
Well, I would say I am Noah. So I think that I totally can relate to him. Know what exfoliation is.
You know what exfoliation is?
No, I just said I don't.
Exfoliation is all the rage.
Okay, fine. We can talk about it.
Everyone is exfoliating, Jim.
I also don't. First of all, I want to know, long before someone came up with the expression about bits and pits and holes and soles, I did bits and pits and holes and soles.
Good.
That was
for
it.
you.
That was my position.
Yeah.
It was a very limited, you allow the soapy water to wash over the rest of your body, and you do a light little thing with a gel in all the other areas. So I am totally with Noah, especially since the critical girlfriend, that would be Audrey, Marjorie, says that he does not smell unclean. In fact, she says he smells rather pleasant.
Okay.
So what's your position?
Okay, well, as usual, there's points on both sides. She didn't have to bring this up in front of his family. Did she have to bring this up
mention that.
in
That's
front
a
of his
good
family?
point, yeah.
That wasn't very nice. She could have had, you don't want to talk about showering techniques around the dinner table with your family. You just
so
don't
you
want to
agree
do that.
she's the a-hole too?
No, I think that if this bothers her, I mean, he does admit, he says that he doesn't smell, but he doesn't.
No, excuse me. She says she admits he doesn't smell.
But he doesn't clean between his toes or among his toes. Should be among his toes.
I'd say between his toes.
Among the toes is very important. Very important.
Between his toes.
And he doesn't bend down to wash his feet, she says. And I think that's an issue because, as we all know, if you go to the gym or anything and people have their shoes there, their flip flops or their trainers or their Crocs, whatever it is, it's not a good situation.
Can I make so your position is who?
My position is if it makes her happy, and of course she won't even know what he's doing because she's not all the time in there watching him in the shower.
Not all the time, no.
Takes her an hour in the shower
Okay,
too.
fine.
What
So
are you doing in there for an
who's the
hour?
a-hole?
Well, I think he should just say, okay, I'll use soap and I'll wash between my feet.
So you think
she'll never know the difference?
It isn't washing between your feet; it's washing
Between your toes. Or
so
is
you
it
would
among
say
your toes?
he's at least a minor a-hole, is what you're saying, correct?
A minor.
Okay,
a minor.
I don't want to have you think worse of me, but I just want to say this right here. I have been around quite a while. I don't know if you're aware of that. You don't need to, if you're in a soapy environment, whether it's a tub or a shower, where the water comes up, where the water becomes totally soapy, most people don't wash their feet, Marjorie. The soapy water, you're making a face at me? What are you talking
You
about?
have to pick up your foot and go among the toes.
How long have we worked together?
26 years.
Okay, I don't, actually longer, because we had that horrible television show on NECN that nobody watched. But 26 years on the radio. I don't. This is a little graphic, but I'm going to do it anyway. How many times have you said to yourself, "I really have to tell Jim his feet really smell
because
bad"?
people have their shoes on, so the shoes keep you protected from those kind of smells.
Can I tell you right now?
But
if I were to take my shoes off, which I'm contemplating doing right now, and my socks, I guarantee you would say nothing, because what you don't seem to understand, because you obviously haven't thought about it, is the soapy water itself does enough cleansing.
No, it doesn't.
By the way, if you step in mud mud and your bare
the
feet.
toes, between the toes.
It's between. Don't say
Whatever
among.
it
That's
is.
ridiculous.
Okay.
Okay, so 877-301-8970. I think Audrey is the a-hole because the boyfriend does wash. He does use gel. He is clean. He does the bits and pits kind of thing, it sounds like to me. Marjorie thinks that she's a tad of an a-hole. Why do you think I get that again?
You know what else you're supposed to do?
Who knows?
With your feet?
What?
Do you have one of those scrapers so you don't have all those calluses on your feet?
No.
Yeah.
If occasionally if you have a callus, I use a scraper.
You're supposed to, so you get all the dead skin off your feet.
I know.
That's exfoliating,
You know what
Jim,
some people
in
do?
a big, heavy way.
This is not today's topic. Some people go to these places where you pay money.
And the fish eat them?
The fish eat them. Can we get a story on that or something about the fish eating the crap off your feet?
Yeah.
How'd you know about that?
Because I think I went with one with a couple of my kids. They went to one of those soul
What are
fish
they,
eating
like
places.
barracudas or something? What are they?
They're little. They're kind of. Unless I'm hallucinating, I think I went to some fish eating place in Florida on vacation with my children.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of strange. But if you go to get a pedicure,
It wasn't like legal seafood, is what you're not talking about.
No.
Okay,
If you go to get a pedicure, they do the. They don't have fish, but they do the
fish?
thing. No, but they do the thing where they scrape the bottom of your feet.
No, but
it's very important.
We're not talking about scraping.
That's exfoliation.
A lot of people do the scraping. No one. The fish thing is something we should have integrated into this conversation. We will in a minute because we're going to get a lot more information about
Not talking about this.
Well, actually, we are, Jordan, whether you like it or not. Look who's on the phone. Josh got the thrill of sitting next to Marjorie at Ryan Landry's latest brilliant. This is Josh.
Oh my gosh!
Hi,
That's Josh.
Josh, it's
Hi,
you, right?
Josh.
Hello, Jim Marjorie. Yes, it is I, Josh of all trades.
Wasn't that a great show?
Up close. Oh, it's a fantastic show.
Yep.
And, Marjorie, you're so brave because I noticed at the show as well that somebody needed to tell Jim he has to exfoliate.
Exactly.
That's true.
People talk about it. They think, we saw Jim Browdy. He needs to exfoliate
Unexfoliated.
his head.
Oh, that's so funny. That is really so mature. Okay, Josh, what's your position on this, please?
All right. So this one is kind of a murky one, I guess. But, Jim, you say that it sounds like he takes care of all his bits and bits.
I believe he does, yes.
Then again, didn't you say, Marcia, that he says he doesn't? He just rinses and the water's going to go?
Yeah,
and
he says that the water's just going to run down and wash his feet. He doesn't like.
He uses gel. He uses shower gel.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's gel. No. Like, I say that who's the a-hole is the person who doesn't really make sure that they're getting around a-hole, okay? But she doesn't have to bring it up to the family. She doesn't have to make it into a whole thing. Like, we shouldn't be talking about this. It doesn't sound like it rises to the level of some of the other,
We shouldn't be talking about this, and Josh is the first caller. I mean, what's up, Josh?
Yeah.
Josh, we'd love having you in our neighborhood. What's that?
I will say I tried to call earlier and actually have a serious conversation with you, but that's overrated anyway. So anyway,
Goodbye, Josh.
I'm late for my appointment to get my toes nibbled on. So.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you,
really
Josh.
weird. It's really weird.
By the way, if somebody has had their feet
I think I
fished
have.
up, well, if you don't
It's
remember,
odd.
if somebody's had their feet fished, if you could tell who's screening the calls, I can't see there. Hannah. Oh, Zoe. Get in the microphone and tell us what it's like. This is Zoe, it turns out, is coming in. She has been defished, it turns out. She's going to describe it to us, and then we'll get back to your call. She's running into the studio as quickly as she can. Tell people what that experience is. What kind of fish is it, first of all?
I have no idea what kind of fish it is.
Okay, well.
They're good size.
They're tiny. The ones that I went to are tiny.
And what happens?
There's a lake on the south coast of Athens, the Athens Riviera, Lake Bugliameni.
Excuse me,
I've
Athens.
gone every single time I've been to Greece, and you go in and you go as deep as you can. There are people who wade into their shoulders and have the fish
So biting your crotch kind of thing?
Their whole body?
Your back. Get all that dead skin
And that is
back.
fun?
People pay. You have to pay to get in.
No, I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about people.
It's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
It's like a meditation experiment.
And
You
there are
have to-
thousands of fish?
Yeah, they swarm you.
Oh, my God.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
What is the fun of that?
Broadening your horizons.
Okay.
Broadening your horizons.
It's not a pleasant experience, but it's an experience.
Okay,
Well,
now,
thank you.
as long as you're here, how do you feel about exfoliation in general?
I think you got to get between the toes.
You got to get between the toes. Absolutely.
Among
She
the
didn't say
toes.
among the toes, so she just
Is it
said
among the
say
toes or between the
It's
toes?
between the toes.
Yeah, I think it should
fine.
be.
Yeah, okay,
but it
fine.
really
You have
should
anything else
be
to add? No,
among
that's
the
it.
toes.
Thank you, Zoe. That was excellent.
Because there's 5 toes.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think
Okay.
about a person who goes to Greece that has thousands of fish nibbling at her whole body?
I think, as she said, you broaden your horizons. It's a new experience. Okay, we're upsetting some of our listeners, Jim.
Why?
One just texts and says, "Thanks for ruining my lunch. I'm so in my head, I'm picturing Noah scrubbing his butt crack.
Although
could
you didn't have to read
just
that
put
one,
my
Marjorie.
sandwich back in my lunchbox. I'm ready to
Whatever, I
lose
know.
their lunch if they ate it. Good thing the show will be shorter soon." But you know what?
We're not dropping
We're not
the a-hole.
dropping. No, we're not dropping this. This is my favorite segment every week. Okay, let's go to Greg in Foxborough. Hi, Greg.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good. I think that the a-hole in this case might be the person who continues to say among the toes.
Oh, you are my hero. You are the man, Greg.
Okay. So, Greg, here's the thing, though. Between is supposed to be between two things, like between the left hand and the right hand.
Three of us.
Or among the three of us. Exactly.
Yes.
So what do we do about the 5 toes?
Avoid it.
Avoid
So
it.
Wash the toes.
Wash. Okay.
By the way, Greg, go ahead.
When you have a problem like that, you just say among the toes sounds ridiculous.
It does.
And that is something up with which I will not put.
Now, let me say two
Very
things.
good.
First of all, the reason why between is fine is you only do between two toes at a
Great
time.
point, Jim.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Secondly, Greg, it sounded to me like you were in the Noah, that would be the guy we're talking about, and Jim, that would be me, camp. Do you actually wash your feet, or you just allow them to be surrounded by soapy water?
Who's listening? Wait a minute. Did I give my real name? Yeah, I think the water. I think the water takes care of it. I have a brush. I use it like once a year.
Oh, there you go.
I think. I think leave the guy alone. If he smells good, what's she complaining about?
That is where I am. If he smells good and he is not, quote, unclean, and there you go.
You know, I was saying there's I'm a little ambivalent on this one because he says she spends an hour in the shower, and that's a long time to be in the shower. She certainly
So she's
can't be actually in the shower
anti-conservation,
all that time.
actually.
Now, another texter says, when your show reduces its time on February 1st to 2 hours, please, please, please keep the Am I the A-hole segment. And we are absolutely
It's going to be the
keep.
exact same show, just a little bit shorter.
Well, and it's how we started. We started with 2 hours.
We did?
Yes, we did.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
Yes, we did.
We did?
God, Jim.
Okay.
Okay.
Krista and Marjorie's going to tell the story, I know, at some point when we're discussing this, about how actually she was hired first. They didn't even want to hire me. They ultimately hired me because they couldn't get anybody else, which sadly is true. Kristen,
It is amazing how many people are actually concerned about the fate of the Am I the A-hole segment. Somebody said I called it the A-wipe instead of the A-hole. Did I do
think
that?
So, no.
Okay.
By the way, nobody cares that we're going 2 hours. Everybody cares that we may lose the A-hole segment. I think that says all you need to know about the shape of our audience. Kristen in Shrewsbury, what's up with you?
Oh, my God. Okay, so she is definitely the a-hole.
Thank you.
Because the dude doesn't smell. Do I exfoliate? Of course I do. Does my boyfriend? I don't know what he's doing in there. All I know is he doesn't smell. And if he doesn't smell, it's fine. If you're that concerned, break up with him and get another guy who's a little more metrosexual. Just
that
is perfect.
Suck it up. It's so ridiculous that you're so concerned. And I don't spend an hour in the shower. I do exfoliate, but I don't do it every shower.
No.
You just kind of... It just seems ridiculous that this is something that you would out him to his family, and that you're so bothered by.
Can I tell you,
Kristen,
you were fabulous. That was
what do you
excellent.
exfoliate with? What do you use? A loofah sponge? That got Bill O'Reilly in trouble.
Boy,
Remember
did
that?
it
The
ever,
loofah
yeah.
sponge. What do you use?
It depends on the part of the body.
Yeah.
Because on your back and your elbows, I use a loofah, but on my feet, I use a pumice stone.
Pumice stone. Those are great.
Yeah.
Then, a lot of people have it prevents the calluses from building up, Jim. All that
Kristen,
dry
have you ever
skin.
gotten in a shower with a 1,000 flounder, or have you not? Have you ever done that?
No, I No.
Why not?
For me, I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that. Okay. Kristen, thank you.
I don't want anything nibbling on my toes.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah, it is weird. It was in Florida that I did it, and it was we just sat and you put your feet in
What was the name of the political
tank.
consultant who was caught nibbling on the toes of his that famous Republican consultant? What was his name?
Oh, I've forgotten.
Think of it in a minute.
I've forgotten.
Are we getting any information on the fish eating, or is this you're going to leave us hanging here?
Why
you guys?
doesn't
What's
she
going on?
just
talking about this?
Yes, we are.
Why doesn't she just get in the shower with him and do the washing for him? There you go.
In any case, Richard and Worcester, you're next. We're talking about Am I the A-hole? The girlfriend, Audrey, if you just tuned in, is very upset because her boyfriend does not scrub nor exfoliate, even though she admits he is not unclean. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, Jim and Marjorie, long-time listener, just a few times through. Good topics today.
This is particularly important, yes.
Yeah, jumping right in. I think she is. She's the a-hole.
Why is that?
Well, from a clinical standpoint, my wife is in allergy and asthma in an office in Worcester.
Oh.
And they see all kinds of folks, children, teens, and older folks. If you're not really producing a lot of odor and you're not getting particularly dirty, you really only need to shower every other day and perhaps maybe every third day. And even when you do, you're not supposed to use a lot of soap. And when you are dirty, particularly for infants and children, it's the 3 Ps: pits, privates, and piggies.
Oh, I like that.
That's a good one. We
Pits,
didn't know that
privates,
one.
and piggies.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, Richard. I've read that a lot, that you can do a lot of damage by scrubbing like your arms or your legs, which are not really getting a lot of dirt on them, kind of thing. You shouldn't overdo it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't.
You don't use a soft cloth. Get those areas, just soap them up and rinse them off. You don't want to eliminate a lot of those natural body oils. And again, particularly if you're really not that dirty. I'm in painting construction. I own my own company, and I do get dirty outdoors and sweaty and hot. So I'm showering every day, but I take a limited shower. I get what I need to get done, and don't spend a lot of time in that water because it does wash away a lot of the important oils your body produces.
You're like a genius.
Triple P man.
You're a good one, Richard.
Pits,
Thank you.
privates, and piggies. That's our new slogan, Jim.
Do you remember we talked about this? We can't remember the name. What was the name of the company from MIT? The company that came
Dirty
in.
something.
The woman and the guy.
They
the
make
one was
dirt.
the CEO. They do like this dirt thing.
Yeah.
And he had not showered in like 25 years?
Yeah.
And unlike Marjorie, who talks a good game but is not willing to back it up, I actually on air stuck my nose in his armpit. Do you remember that, just to see?
Yeah.
And he was perfectly fine. He smelled like Noah smells, perfectly fine, which I don't know what the point is. So let me read you this because our staff has totally let us down. You ready for this? No, not yet, Marjorie.
Did you read this?
Here's the AI overview of the issue. Fish exfoliate feet through a fish pedicure, where small toothless Garra, Garra rufa fish, nibble away dead skin, offering a ticklish, tingling sensation for softer feet.
Exactly.
Make it stop.
They're called Dr. Fish is what they're called. What do you think of that?
I think that's what it is. It's still a weird thing. I mean, you can. They're swishing around in the water. You can see them and you can feel them. It's a weird.
By the way, during the next
thing.
GBH pledge for $12.50 a month or $150 all at once, you can get a Gora Rufa fish foot bite for whatever. What are you laughing
A
about?
texter wants to know how Harriet feels about exfoliation. Maybe if Jim was a better scrubber, she'd have landed him.
Oh,
and
God.
Seth in Rhode Island wants to know if Jim exfoliates his Morton's toe. And an anonymous texter says, I think there should be a weekly segment discussing belly button lint too in the new 2-hour show.
We're actually doing that tomorrow. We're doing the belly button lint tomorrow. You must have seen the producer's memo. It was James'
Oh, my
idea.
gosh.
Annie and Gardner, you're next on BPR. We're talking about something relatively
Annie.
important. Hello.
Hi there. Great topic.
Thank you. It is.
I think they Audrey and Noah equally share the a-holianism in this scenario.
Oh, I love it.
Why is that?
It was really hard to say that without saying the S's in that.
No, I know
actual
that.
word.
It's very good. Yeah.
Because she should not bring this up in front of family.
No.
It's a couplesy thing.
No.
He should have kept it private. And then for him, he is in a relationship. He really should be attending to his pits and privates. And as for the piggies, I have a great solution. Plug up your drain before you get in the shower. Throw in some lavender-scented Epsom salts. And while you're showering, you have a foot soak, and your feet are not only fragrant, but they're softer afterwards.
Woman's a genius.
And you haven't done a thing.
That is actually brilliant. That is really high quality calling.
And you know what's kind of nice? Taking a bath.
I credit my dermatologist.
Oh.
Yeah, taking a bath with Epsom salts. You know, sometimes they tell you that if you've hurt yourself or something, but it's kind of nice in general, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a great
What's the word you created again?
Including yucky feet.
What's that word you created, Annie? We're going to use it again. What was that word?
Okay, aholianism, but I usually say it with the S.
Okay, aholianism. We like it. Annie, thanks for your call and your thoughts. We appreciate it. That was excellent.
Here's Noah's defense. I support Audrey, but I'm a shaved head, quick shower kind of guy. Don't need to be reenacting a purification ritual every time I get back from the gym.
Here's an anonymous texter. At the beginning of the show, I was sad to hear you guys would be cutting it short by an hour. But now at the end of the show, I'm really happy about it.
Oh no, they're not into toes, piggies.
If people don't know what we're talking about, we'll mention it again. We said at the top. No. I meant in terms of the show. We'll mention it again before we leave you in the next few minutes after Jared joins us. Jake in Mansfield. Hey, what's up?
Oh, hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So this aholianism, I like that word.
Yeah, we do too.
When I lived down in Belize, locals, I was down there for a couple of years during the pandemic, they would go and swim in these dammed up rivers. And part of I'm sitting there, I'm going, hey, are you guys feeling this? And they're like, oh yeah, those are the little fish. They eat. Now, this isn't just your feet. I mean, they get everything, including the, whatever. I mean, it's a full body experience.
Wait. That's Topo. What's his name?
Yeah, Topo Gijo. You do a better Topo Gijo.
I'm not going to do it. Jake, thank you for your
Jim.
call. We
Just
appreciate
once.
it.
Come on.
Eddie, I love you.
That was Topo Gijo. For those who don't know, you have to Google it.
It was on the Ed Sullivan show.
And
it was
he
Dick
was a little
Morris.
hand puppet.
Dick Morris was
Morris
involved
was
with
the guy.
Yeah, thank you to the texter who just.
And by the way,
reminded us
when
of
I
that.
finally met Dick Morris, you know what's incredible? Dick Morris was on my show on NECN. When we were together, and I learned right before the show went on the air that I had, when I was president of Legal Services Union, had picketed his wife's house. You did? Which was his house as well. She was the head of HR at the Legal Services Program. That forced us out on strike.
Did you ask him about the toe sucking incident?
I did. We had a long conversation about it, and it involved. He is a big supporter. He was trying to be the human version of a Guru Rufa fish, he told me. So he was just nibbling at the ends of his toes.
Okay, one of our texters says on the Seinfeld show, Kramer installed a garbage disposal in his shower so he could meal prep while showering. How does this fit in?
I think we have time for another one or two. Bruce in Roxbury, what's your deal? Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Yes, good afternoon. You guys you failed to mention the second phase of showering or bathing.
What?
That's towel drying.
Yes.
You have to, that's where you get into some of the other cracks and crevices.
You do.
Particularly with the feet.
Oh, that is a very good point. Go ahead, Bruce. Continue.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
No, and it does help alleviate the crusting, if you will.
Crusting.
Yeah. You know something, Bruce? I'm so glad you called. Because remember when people used to put towels on the clothesline, they would put them in the dryer?
Sure.
Then you're getting a towel that can really do some exfoliation there. It's very crusty edge towel. Look at Jared.
This is the most disgusting one I have ever walked in on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jared is disgusting.
This is revolting.
You ever done that fish thing with the fish eating at your body kind of thing?
No.
Let me tell you,
maybe Zoe can take me there.
Our staff was so disgusted, other than Zoe, who has much more courage than her coworkers, they wouldn't even do the research for us.
Yeah, I can understand why.
Thing
How do you feel about exfoliation?
Can we talk about something else?
By the way, can I tell you, I know this guy, he is like big time exfoliator. Look at him. Look at him. He won't even make eye contact with me. It's obvious.
You do have lovely skin, Jared.
You do. You do have actually very nice skin.
Yeah, so
okay,
I'm here to announce the Culture Show is going to 5 hours starting in March, so we can give heated rivalry all the attention it deserves and not talk about.
Yeah, we're going to explain to people who didn't tune in at the beginning of the show what we're talking about. What are you doing today on your show there?
So Amari Paris Jeffries is going to join us. We'll will talk about their upcoming MLK celebrations.
Embrace Boston.
Embrace Boston. Photographer Amani Willett is here. He has he has produced these gorgeous photo books over the course of his career. This latest one is called Invisible Sun. And he's looking at these medical moments that he had as a child and how they've resurfaced in adulthood. And now he's with his photography and his children, how he's revisiting it. So we'll talk about that. And then I get to quiz you both for once. What is my favorite cocktail? I think you both know this.
Martini.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't even let Jim guess.
Martini.
So today we're having a martini masterclass with Jackson Cannon, who's going to go through the whole what's the martini, what's a dirty martini, how did it rise up, and it's 150-year history. It's going to be super fun.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go to these very nice places, instead of having the classic triangular martini glass, they have the rounded...
The coupe glass.
The coupe glass.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Well, I think the servers like it because it doesn't spill as much, but we don't like it because that's part of the teeny tiny trend.
That's right, the teeny tiny trend.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not as
actually,
much booze.
don't go away because we're going to spend a minute after Marjorie thanks people explaining very quickly what's happening. Start going, Marjorie, quickly.
Oh, okay. All right, hold on. Let me get my thing
Keep
here.
with us 24/7 by way of our podcast.
Yes.
And check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Go ahead.
Tomorrow we'll be back at the Boston Public Library. Our media analysis segment, Press Play with Flipside's Yahweh Miller and GBH's Adam Riley. Saturday, Andy Borowitz on his 25th anniversary.
I'm very excited
Live
about
Music Friday with singer-songwriter and great guitarist Patty Larkin and
Patty Larkin.
media maven Sue O'Connell. Zoe Matthews, Aidan Cullen, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, John Claw, Parker, Jane Bologna. Thank you, everyone. And
here's the deal. We announced at the top of the show that we went to our bosses, Marjorie and I, about 6 months ago, and we said we'd like to work a little less for a variety of reasons, to make room for some other talent, which we preach all the time. We decided to practice what we're preaching, and also to have some time to do some things on ourselves. And they were kind enough to say yes. So come the first Monday in February, we will be 11 to 1. 1 to 2 will be a new show, The Curiosity Desk, with Edgar B. Herrick III. The brilliant culture show with Jared Bowen will remain in the 2 to 3 slot. Is that correct?
It's all correct.
And we also want to take the opportunity to say that one of our great producers for years, 7 years, Aidan Conley, and who's responsible for Live Music Friday and a ton of great things, has left us to become the lead producer for Edgar B. Herrick III on that show. We wish them luck. We're excited about it. We're excited about this whole lineup kind of thing. Do you want to say anything before you run down the hole?
No, our family expands. This is very fun. Although an hour less of you, that makes me sad. It makes a lot of people sad.
One of the texters points out that the extra one less hour a day will give Jim a lot of extra slithering time in his future.
But you have to run. I know. I didn't mean to hold you here. Mm-hmm. But Aidan, congratulations to you.
I'm going to miss Aidan.
We're very excited about this. And again, as I said at the top of the show, exact same shows we currently do, MIVA Hull included, just a little bit shorter.
Well, people forget.
Well, it is going to stop. The third hour is going to stop.
We started here at 2 hours, then we went to 3 hours, and now we're going back to the original.
Oh, you meant here.
Yes.
I thought you meant our whole career.
Yes, no.
We did start at 2 hours.
No, my God, once it was 4 hours.
And then we went to 3 hours.
That was a long time.
And by the way, we really should thank the managers here.
We are thrilled.
For saying yes
we are
to
absolutely
this.
thrilled
they were
to this.
great about it.
Yep.
And
we
excited.
promised to everyone that we would keep the Am I the A-hole segment, so that's not going anywhere.
In fact, actually, we're going to be doing it 2 hours a day. We're going to announce that till February, but we might as well announce it now.
Well,
I'm Jim Browdy.
There are so many A-holes to talk about.
I'm Jim Browdy.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you can tune in tomorrow and have a great afternoon.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Boston Ski and Tennis, helping families stay active and outdoors this winter, offering a range of winter sport products and services with locations in Newton and Westboro or online at bostonskiandtennis.com. Private investigator Alexa Crow always fights the good fight, whether it's a baffling crime or just in her everyday life. And often, it's both. Catch My Life is Murder tonight at 8 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Imari Paris-Jeffries joins us to unpack the shockwaves from the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, a move that tests the limits of international law and sets a precarious precedent for how powerful nations exert force. We'll look at what this means for sovereignty, diplomatic norms, and the moral weight of intervention on the world stage. Then, how do you reconcile what the body remembers but the mind forgets? Photographer Imani Willett has spent years turning family life, cabins in the woods, and late-night drives into stirring images. Now, in his new photography book, Invisible Sun, he dives into his childhood, his profound and severe medical events, and the long shadows they've cast on his life. And cocktail legend Jackson Cannon returns with his bar cart for a martini masterclass. Born in the late 19th century and refined in the roaring 20s in Prohibition, the martini has embodied sophistication for well over a century. From Hemingway to James Bond's Shaken Not Stirred, dry, dirty, wet, or wildly reimagined, the martini's silhouette in a V-shaped glass is American cocktail lore at its coolest. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. We begin the show with our recurring feature, AI Actual Intelligence, where we tap into the most interesting thinkers in our region for their original and algorithm-free insights and observations. We're joined now by Imari Paris-Jeffries, President and CEO of Embrace Boston, and one of the co-chairs of Everyone 250. He, of course, joins us every month. It's great to see you.
Great seeing you.
Because
Happy
I haven't
New Year.
seen you. Yes, exactly. Happy New Year. You're looking especially dapper in this new year, I would add.
I was telling you about my curl brush. I got the curls curling.
Well, you could have a whole routine. Now we have to shift gears and just talk about the capture and detention of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. As always, we have these conversations with you, especially through the prism of what Martin Luther King Jr. espoused and talking about having a moral authority. This is something, of course, the world is parsing right now, and it can be very complicated. The U.S. issued an arrest warrant and took him out of his country. There are, of course, people talking about his human rights abuses, something that the UN documented in terms of terror and detention, sexual assault against women. How do we begin to wade through what has just happened?
And in this moment of time, this questioning of does our country have the moral authority to be the moral police to do such a thing? And in this month where we're celebrating King, to understand this idea of the ceremonious king, that in this moment of time people are posting their favorite MLK quotes, their favorite MLK pictures, their favorite MLK inspirations, but without understanding, I think, to your point, what Dr. King stood for, which was anti-militarism, anti-poverty, and civil rights. And in the moment where our country is both more militaristic than ever before, we are leaning into our full military selves. We are rolling back, and every single time that I'm on the show, we're talking about the rollback of civil rights legislation. We've seen 40% of Dr. King-related civil rights legislation being rolled back. And we're seeing folks struggling each and every day. And we just seen the expiration of healthcare subsidies. December 31st, we saw those rollbacks. We've seen this increase in poverty, right? And so as we're celebrating in this holiday, moving away from the ceremonial Dr. King and understanding his legislation, especially in light of what we've just witnessed, the shooting of an American citizen in Minneapolis, while we've seen a head of state get kidnapped from his country by American troops. We are in strange militaristic times.
And there has been, of course, so much conversation within this country, so much clamoring for attention to be paid on basically the quality of life in this country for so many who feel that it is not being addressed, who are suffering, to then see this attention being paid to another nation and this ambiguous notion of what the U.S.'s role will now be in the governance of Venezuela. How do you begin to reconcile this and process what we are seeing, and also with the understanding that it may not end with Venezuela?
And the nuance, right? Because on one front, you see a lot of folks who have had to flee Venezuela because of the poverty, the extreme poverty. You read from different sources, the large population of people who have had to leave Venezuela because of the collapse of institutions there from countries all over South America, including the United States. Even during the election cycle, we kept hearing about these Venezuelan gangs taking over buildings in Chicago, right? And so you have on this one note us talking about Venezuelan refugees and migrants coming to this country, and now we're over there as rescuers, as arresting their president, and it's a nuanced conversation because you do see people celebrating, a certain population of Venezuelans celebrating the arrest, and you see a certain population of Venezuelans up in arms. Where does the authority of the United States begin and end? Do we have a right to do this? You see a lot of our allies condemning what we've just done. It is a slippery slope, and I've read recently in a news story from the New York Times where the administration is lifting up the Monroe Doctrine around the United States, feeling that the Western Hemisphere is the unique territory of our domain, and Greenland is the next place in which we have our eyes on, and the potential consequences that may have with our European and NATO allies.
Not to mention the consequences of China following the U.S.'s lead when it comes to Taiwan, or Russia following the U.S. or escalating the U.S.'s lead when it comes to Ukraine, especially as we talk about removing a leader from their country.
And this is the culture show, and so you and I talk about culture. And so as we are entering the semi-quincentennial, the culture of America is the American dream, the aspiration of America, the moral authority of America. We haven't gotten it right all the time. We've made mistakes, but part of the magic of America is that we learn from our mistakes. We attempt to get it right. We're in a moment where that learning from our mistakes and attempting to get it right has been thrown out of the window. We are in a fast-driving, moving car and throwing all of the we are in a reckless abandon right now. And so the moral authority that we had that has been a part of the American aspiration, the American dream, is dangerously evaporating before our eyes. And I think that is the tragedy of moving into this semi-quincentennial and seeing that goodwill, the aspirations of our founders, wherever they began, the generations built upon each other just being evaporated before our eyes.
Because we see process evaporating. We can leave the outcome aside if we at least have process in this country as established through the Constitution and congressional mandates. You, as you are so kind, always are bringing me something here on the show. Today you brought A Testament of Hope, the essential writings and speeches of Martin Luther King Jr. I'll be eager to dive into this, but do you have a sense, especially around this, the following, which is how much did he wade into the U.S.'s role in the global role? Of course, he was murdered before Vietnam fully engulfed the international community and the United States. But how did he express what the United States should be doing in that regard?
I'm only on the show once a month, and so you and I have a short segment, and so much happens in a month. We don't get to talk about it, and I don't think we talked about in detail the changing of the Kennedy Center, and so symbols have a lot to do in how we think about ourselves, and King and his legacy has been co-opted. He has been marginalized into this image, an accessible, sanitized image. He was assassinated. When he was assassinated, he was not well liked. He was not very popular with the mainstream. He was not popular with people who invoke his name, his image, his quotes right now for the purposes of co-opting the vast majority of Americans. Many of the people who probably quote him right now couldn't stand him if he were alive today. And so when we think about I lost my train of thought.
Well, his play, I was asking about we can dive into this further in our next segment, but just how he would look at the global role of the United States.
When we think about the global role of the United States, King was anti-military. One of his final speeches, he was assassinated during the sanitation workers' rights. He was pro-workers. He was anti-poverty. He was anti-war. And so many of the large institutions, many of the pro-war machine, many of the pro institutions that are front and center of the situation that just occurred with the kidnapping of a public leader, King would have spoken out against this today. And we're in this moment where we have been largely silent. We have been largely preoccupied with mechanisms that have kept us busy and cloudy. Social media, fake news, the bombardment of information has not allowed us to be active in the way that King would have been active had he been alive today.
But as you and I, by the way, I'm speaking with Amari Parris-Jeffries, President and CEO of Embrace Boston. As you and I have talked about again and again and again, where change happens is when people come together. You are giving people an opportunity to come together for the upcoming MLK Boston Beloved Community Weekend. Beloved being a key word here.
Well, this is different. We are in the moment where many service organizations, many nonprofits are not getting the support they need. Many cultural organizations aren't receiving the support they need, and instead of retracting, we are practicing abundance. And so if people go to MLKBoston.com, they'll see at least 14 other organizations that are celebrating MLK in their own way throughout the Greater Boston area this year. It isn't just Embrace Boston. It's Boston Children's Course. It's Project 351. It's the MLK Breakfast, which is the largest MLK commemoration in the country. It is the Wise MLK celebration. It's Temple Israel's MLK celebration. It is a play happening in Cambridge. It's Malcolm and Stokely. We have to practice abundance in this moment where there is a temptation for us to be separated, for us to not consolidate resources, for us to retract in our own corners. Now is the time for us to practice belonging. And so 14 cultural organizations have come together. There is a website, MLK Boston. People should celebrate and honor the legacy of Martin and Coretta in their own way. Boston is a city that has one of the unique rights to celebrate and uphold their legacy. Their love story began here.
Well, Amari Paris Jeffrey, it's always great to speak with you. And I can't believe every time you're here, there's something so pivotal that's happening that we have to address with you. But of course, this is why we talk it out. This is why we parse it. You have solutions, words we can go to, speeches we can return to, or togetherness to be had. Thank you, as always, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Amari Paris Jeffries is president and CEO of Embrace Boston and one of the co-chairs of Everyone 250. He joins us every month. Well, coming up, photography as autobiography. Amani Willett joins us to talk about his latest work, the photo book Invisible Sun, that also serves as a reckoning with his childhood and the profound medical events that have marked his life. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
This year, the world celebrates a milestone anniversary.
30 years on the air for the world.
It is simply extraordinary, the kinds of cataclysmic events that we've reported on over 30 years.
We covered the prison at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, CIA black sites.
This work has never been more important than now. We have to continue to tell these stories and act as a bridge between these different communities.
Thank you for listening and happy birthday to the world. Listen weekdays at 3 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Bryant University, ranked 5th in the nation for internships and recruiter demand by LinkedIn's 2025 Top Colleagues list. Committed to preparing students to be day one ready for success. Learn more at bryant.edu. And the Cambridge Homes, a nonprofit independent and assisted living community in Cambridge, offering residents supportive services as well as cultural, educational, and social programs. thecambridgehomes.org/tradition. And Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Porter Square, offering private cooking events for your next team building activity, family reunion, birthday party, or night out. You can learn more at cambridgeculinary.com.
You can make a lasting impact on the station that has provided local news and conversations throughout the years by naming GBH in your estate plans. Find out more online at gbh.org/planning.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Photographer Amani Willett starts with what's closest to him, his young family, his father's cabin in the New Hampshire woods, the roads that sprawl through his community. They're images that he uses to explore themes of American life. In books like Disquiet, The Disappearance of Joseph Plummer, and A Parallel Road, his photographs often reveal calm, everyday scenes, bedrooms and backyards, dark forests and headlights on a lonely highway. But there's a tension in them, a feeling that something is off or danger may be looming. He uses those scenes to ask who feels safe, who wants to disappear, and how history, race, and concern become a cloak folding over everyday life. His new book, Invisible Sun, is his most intimate project yet. While he was being treated for chronic illness as an adult, memories of the medical procedures he experienced as a child came flooding back. So he turned to photography, not to mention his own children, to make sense of them. Amani Willett, welcome to the Culture Show and welcome back to GBH. It's great to see you again.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Your photography is gorgeous. Like the photo books you've put together before, it's a journey that you take people on. I just gave the broadest outlines, but how would you describe what people experience as they literally go page by page through your photo book?
I love the word you use, journey, and that's really the way I try to think of my projects, and especially this one in particular, that it really is a journey. I'm taking people along on a sort of abstract narrative ride with me as they experience what my experience has been with trying to navigate as an adult earlier childhood experiences and come to terms with them and sort of reconcile and move on from them. And so with most of my projects, I try to use emotion as a way to connect with my audience. And in the book, you'll find it's really an emotionally charged journey with a lot of really sort of personal and intimate images, and also some unsettling images of the world and of the cosmos. And those are all combined together to create a journey. And when I was making this project, I was actually going through a lot of therapy myself. And I was actually doing ketamine-assisted therapy, psychotherapy. And I was doing that to really delve in deep to try to tap into this younger version of myself that still needed to be healed.
So I'd like to back up a little bit to understand how we get to the point of the journey. If to the extent that you're comfortable, what happened to you as a child that you realized was deep within you and would now resurface as an adult?
Yeah, so when I was quite young, living in Africa, I had two experiences where my intestines were tied in knots and I almost died twice. And I have some pretty big scars on my stomach to prove it. And I think just from a very early age, it sort of colored how I saw the world. I saw it as this place that was quite fragile.
How old were you when this happened?
The first time I was 1, the second time I was about 3.
Wow. And so, but I know that I can't remember that early, but something like that makes you remember.
I think it's held within you. Your body remembers, keeps the memory within you. And I think just the way that I was raised and the way that my parents treated me as a result of those experiences also, has an effect.
So how did they begin to resurface, or why? Was it directed? Did you direct yourself to expunge this?
So basically, as an adult, I started having some other chronic health issues, one related to my heart and some other things. And the way I was reacting to the situations where, as a kid might react, it's sort of overreactions in a way. And I realized that there was a part of me that was deep inside that needed still to be healed, that hadn't come to terms with the earlier bouts with medical illness that I had had in my life, and that I needed to find a way to reconcile and understand that younger part of myself and help him realize that things would be all right. If that makes sense. That sounds, kind of like out there, but
no. I think we all understand a lot about our pasts and our bodies and what we're carrying around. And this is why I find it so fascinating, and this is why I love speaking to artists, because most of us can't articulate it in the way people like you can by creating these photographs. But one more question before we go to the photographs. You said ketamine therapy. What was that experience? What started to surface in your mind?
Yeah, so it was I'd never done anything like that, and it was this really, it is a hallucinogen slightly. So I was having all these visions of me floating through space, of time collapsing in on itself, visions of me as a younger kid, visions of me that may not have been real memories. They might have just been, memories that my mind wanted to be real. And so I would go through these therapy sessions and then journal extensively. It was just like a flood for hours and hours and hours afterwards of journaling, writing down all the things that I had seen and sort of the journey I had been on during the ketamine session.
And what was it? Was it traumatic? Was it a relief?
It was all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really quite unsettling in many ways, very scary at times, and also very enlightening as well. I learned a lot about myself. And that's one of the things I talk about with ketamine is it sort of compresses the time, collapses the time frame in which you can do a lot of really important and extensive therapy in a shorter amount of time. And so I learned a lot about myself by doing the sessions.
Well, and this is what I find so fascinating. That is clearly, from the way you've described, these are intense experiences, but then you continue them in your project and in creating this photo book.
Yes. So I one day had this strange idea of I was working with AI for the first time, and I had this strange idea of what would happen if I took some of these journal entries and put them into a large language model that was trained on my images. So basically an AI model that was trained on my archive of photographs and output these new sort of memories. And what I was really surprised by the results. I was getting these images that really resembled what I had experienced while on the ketamine. And there's no way to really photograph. I couldn't photograph while I was on ketamine, in that experience. So this was really the way to get to the heart of that experience.
I'm speaking with Imani Willett, a photographer and associate professor of photography at MassArt. We're talking about his photography book, Invisible Sun. We spend so much time, all sectors of society, talking about artificial intelligence, and I know that I come squarely down in the middle because, yes, there's a lot of theft with artificial intelligence, and a lot of artists' material is being exploited by this, and it's going to replace a lot of jobs, but as you have just illustrated, there is a lot of value to this too. How do you feel about AI as part of your artistic process now that you have gone through this?
Yeah, we could probably do a whole show just on AI. And it's something I'm still, reckoning with and use with caution for sure. But I'm a person who works with lots of different kinds of imagery, and most of my projects I use my own photographs, I use archival images, I use images from the Creative Commons, and I see AI imagery as another basically tool in a toolkit of ways to use images to tell stories. And so, there are more journalistic settings or stories. For example, in my previous book, A Parallel Road, I wouldn't use artificial intelligence in that kind of work where it's really talking about history. But for this sort of project where it really is about getting into my mind in this sort of metaphysical journey, it made sense to try to experiment with using new ways to tell stories.
Well, you also have a very analog approach to this, which is bringing your children into the fold. How did you begin to work with them as you're going back to these memories of your childhood?
Yeah, so with most of my projects, I don't understand what I'm doing at the beginning. I'm just photographing. And then at some point I realize, I'm photographing my children because, I'm trying to grapple with this idea or answer this question. Grapple with a particular question. And what I realized was, looking back at some photos, was that I was taking lots of pictures of my children in different settings. And I realized that I was using them as sort of stand-ins for my younger self and trying to see how I would be reacting in different situations. And so when I work with my kids, I don't set out on a traditional photo shoot. It's not like, okay, at 5 o'clock, we're going to go and we're going to, prearrange this setup, and we're going to photograph it. I'm more working intuitively with them. I might see them standing in a certain gesture or in a certain spot in a certain environment, and I might ask them to pause, or I might take a candid photo. And so it's accumulating images that way of an archive of them, and then going through that archive to tell the stories that I want to tell.
Well, speaking of telling the stories, as I mentioned, this is your third photo book. Do I have that right?
No,
Third,
fourth. Yeah.
Fourth. 3 prior to this. 3 plus 1, Jared, equals 4. What is the process, the artistic process that opens up for you? Some people may translate to your experience turning the journals into a book, and it's funny because I think your photo books are very cinematic, so it could be a film. What is it that sings for you in creating a photo book in terms of creating this narrative?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's the best form I've found for making my photographs make sense. If that's the simple, honest truth. It's the way I like image relationships, and so rather than single images, I really like to see what images can do in pairs or in sequences. I see them as words. A photograph is a word to me, and when you put them together, you start creating sentences. And so for me, it's really the way to make meaning out of pictures more than a single image can do.
Where does color come into those words and sentences?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of black and white in this book, more than usual, but the world is full of color, and the way I used it sparingly in this project in particular was thinking about both the blue of distance and longing. And so there are a lot of stark blue images, and then there are a lot of red images which speak to sort of a more bodily or flesh experience, what it's like to be embodied or encapsulated in the red.
And for people, I just happened to glance up and I see our YouTube stream. We're seeing red right now and looking at a tree-lined landscape. There's so much about nature in your book. In fact, I think probably all, if I'm remembering correctly, all of the images of your children are all out in nature. What is the place of that, as you've come to realize?
Yeah, it's just on this journey, I've realized that, again, as hokey as it may sound, that we're just really we're really attached to the natural world. We're a part of the world, and then we're also a part of this larger cosmos that we don't, and that's the part we don't understand. But they're two sides of the same coin, in a sense. There's the nature and the sort of symbolic ways that can feel nurturing. And on the flip side, there's the sort of this cosmic aspect that can feel very alienating or overwhelming, and something that we don't understand.
How long has this process been to create this book?
I work a lot with my archives, so I would say the oldest picture in the book is probably 6 or 7 years old. But once I start working on a project, I start photographing a lot more. I'd say it probably takes a good 2 or 3 years to make it into something that feels like it's ready for the world.
Well, I ask because I wonder if there's a clear demarcation from who you were before this project, and of course it's entwined with the therapy that you had, but who you were before and now after what you've produced here.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. And in the sequence in the book, there's this one part where there's a sequence of 3 pages where there's birds on the spreads, and they get whiter and whiter and whiter, and the bird just all of a sudden almost like whitewash the page. And then the next page is blank, and there's just a little poem. And I see that as the place near the end of the book where I'm sort of like getting rid of my older life, and a new sort of reawakening, a rebirth is happening. And it's not a perfect rebirth, but it's a rebirth as a new individual who's gained a lot of knowledge and has a new relationship with my past self. And that person embarks on the journey from there.
I am so happy to hear that for you. Again, congratulations on the book. It's always great to speak with you. I love what you produce and how you think. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amani Willett is a photographer and associate professor of photography at MassArt. His latest photography book is Invisible Sun. To learn more about Amani Willett, check out his website, Amani Willett, that's 2 L's and 2 T's.com. Thank you again. Coming up, we're going to shake and stir things up with Jackson Cannon. He's the beverage director for ES Hospitality, home to the city's most celebrated restaurants. Today, we're diving into all things the 150-year-old Martini. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Migration is nothing new. In fact, it's as old as humanity itself. This is from someone who spent more than a decade as a global nomad. His advice, don't get too comfortable staying in one place.
Keep kind of a psychic bag packed. Don't always look at it as an emergency thing or a negative thing. It can have huge positive connotations as well.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And American Repertory Theater with Wonder, a new musical for the whole family based on the best-selling book and beloved movie. The Wall Street Journal calls it heartfelt and uplifting. Tickets at amrep.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and Music Worcester.
A performing arts presenter founded in 1858, programming and activating cultural spaces in central Massachusetts.
Adrian Finley, Executive Director.
Music Worcester understands its sponsorship of GBH to be quite a successful one. Such a unique opportunity to connect with individuals from around New England and beyond.
To learn how GBH can benefit your business, visit gbh.org/sponsorship.
Find that Friday feeling early at GBH Music's Jazz Night, featuring pianist, composer, and poet David Leach. Tonight at 5:30 at the Boston Public Library. Get a free ticket at wgbh.org/events.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Today on The Culture Show, this isn't Dry January, it's Dry Martini January. That tall drink of gin or vodka that, in its 150 years, has come to define elegance and practicality. That was a beloved source of hydration for Winston Churchill, James Bond, and Dorothy Parker. That says a lot about its consumer. Do you like it dirty? Here with a preview of his very own Martini masterclass is cocktail icon Jackson Cannon. He's been shaking up Boston's cocktail scene for years, first behind the bar at Eastern Standard and now as beverage director for ES Hospitality, home to some of the city's most celebrated restaurants. On January 24th, you can get the full Martini treatment. Jackson Cannon will teach the art, technique, and lore of this stylish, sophisticated sip by way of his Martini 2.0 cocktail class. You can find tickets at Open Table. Jackson Cannon, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Jared, just so great to be here. Thanks for that introduction.
Well, I probably tip my hat because my drink, my cocktail is the Martini. So I can't wait to dive into all of this.
I know this about you. And just should say, I didn't say it before your intro, but if you're playing along at home and you want to do the Dry January game, every time we mention Dry January, you can have a little shot of a dry martini. And that way you can avoid that particular practice altogether.
Exactly. That is sound advice. Well, let's just get clinical to start. What is a martini?
So a martini is many things to many people. Its origins are in the 19th century as a drink of vermouth and gin. Other cocktails that we see so many different kinds of drinks evolve out of. And then, at a certain point in time, it does become this word associated with like, that's how I drink just straight spirits chilled. So, there's nothing wrong with you calling for your brand of vodka as a martini with no vermouth, but its origins are a drink with more complexity than that. So it happens in many different eras. Even in the 19th century, the practice of beginning to make the martini dirty occurs with muddled olives. There's the Vesper, which I know you like, which we're going to delve into here in a second.
You have such a good memory.
Is, what we call the James Bond martini. This is a version of a martini created in fiction first, and then something we had to kind of reason out the recipe for, but it blends both vodka and gin with quina lillet instead of vermouth. There are lots of other variations, too. You could submit that the Alaska cocktail of chartreuse and gin is a martini variant, with chartreuse, the herbal liqueur, taking that complex role of aromatized wine in the original. So we push for various slightly wetter versions, which we mean to say have more dry vermouth in them. But however you take your martini, however you like your coffee, we're here to get it for you. And in the class that we're going to do on the 24th, we did one last year where we handled certain segments, but there's just so much material. I felt like it was The Godfather 2, and I had to. We're going to jump around in time and just go deeper on a few different themes.
Well, what is the experience of drinking a martini? I chose that word very deliberate. That yes, it's elegant because I think we've all seen the films where the matinee idol or the woman in the beautiful gown is holding a martini. But I think it's also really practical because it's a pretty straightforward drink and it's a very clean taste.
Well, it has this reputation done a certain way as being a very strong drink, but it is diluted, right, by water. It is chilled by temperature. If it's got the enhancements of olive brine and vermouth and maybe a little bit of bitters, it's complex enough of a drink to be enjoyed slowly, right? So it's also got kind of gastronomic effects. It can kind of really form a reset of both mind and body in a way that few cocktails are as complete.
How do we distinguish between, and people fall into two very distinct camps, or like me, both camps with the Vesper martini because it's vodka and gin, but vodka or a gin martini?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we don't rub in the two camps' faces from behind the bar is that it's a difference with less of a distinction than you think, but an important one for the consumer, right? So they're both very clean distilled spirits, and gin has these botanicals like reinfused back into it, right? So yes, you have a reaction to those botanicals both in flavor and in fact on your body. So it's true that gin may not agree with you from a biological standpoint or from a social standpoint, that you got a little sick on it, you had a gincident in your past, and you have this association. So all those things are valid and true, but to us, like, they behave more similarly in drinks. Vodka can be a little bit tougher because it doesn't bring flavor. So it can be a little bit more, delicate to balance it if you're doing true, like, older versions of the vodka martini with vermouth added. But in the Vesper, you kind of get sort of the best of both worlds, right? You see they kind of marry together to make a lighter, thinner gin martini that's packing a punch, which is kind of fun. So I have that in my bag right now.
We can start to get going, and I can interject about a billion other questions I have as you're making it. By the way, if people are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Jackson Cannon. He's the beverage director for ES Hospitality, and this is just a prelude to his masterclass on January 24th, when you'll have the full martini experience by way of his Martini 2.0 cocktail class. The tickets, again, are at Open Table.
So one of the things we'll talk about in that is the science of freezer martinis and why it makes sense, and we can talk a little bit now. But I just wanted you to see that these came out of the freezer and went into this ice, and they are so cold, but they're still liquid, but they're so cold that they're causing all this freezing around them.
So that is one of the key components of a martini, of course, is that it has to be as chilled as possible?
Sometimes the cheeky way to put that is the essential ingredient is cold.
Yeah.
But there's something that happens
as you're breaking apart the ice there just to get it out. That's how chilled it is.
When you've done them in the freezer for home entertaining, this is a breeze, right?
Which is
and
okay
I'm
to do.
I'm going to make them for the whole staff. So this is our last segment, right?
Yeah. We very deliberately designed this to be the last segment.
Yeah, you're so smart not to bring me here at 10 in the morning.
Well, I'll tell you that people have probably heard from my voice. I was under the weather a little bit, so I have not had a cocktail in about 3 weeks. So I'll tread lightly here.
I'm going to do a little fresh lemon twist for you there.
So what is this that you're about to serve?
So this is a Vesper. So this is a marriage of vodka gin with Lillet.
And what is Lillet for people who don't know?
Quina Lillet is an aromatized wine from France. It lacks some of the bittering agents that you'd find in a classic vermouth, but it has some beautiful citrus notes as well. So I'm going to join you.
Cheers. Oh, that's fantastic. So what is the proportion that you do? And this, again...
You'll have to come to class to find that.
This is the James Bond martini because Ian Fleming wrote the recipe into one of the novels.
It's very interesting. In that scene, which was so faithfully treated in the Daniel Craig Casino Royale, he is putting his adversaries a little off key by making this order up on the fly and changing from what he normally gets.
Well, let's play a little bit, and then we'll have you dissect why this is so key. This, again, is Daniel Craig as James Bond in Casino Royale.
Vodka martini. Shaken or stirred? Do I look like I give a damn?
Why is that response? This is not the, you couldn't hear it. So, vodka martini, shaken or stirred? James Bond responds, do I look like I give a damn? Why is that significant for James Bond to be saying that?
Shaken or stirred becomes this incredibly iconic part of our culture, and then in a very sub-bubble, an interesting point of contention among craft practitioners of the craft of making drinks, right? So we tend to shake things that have citrus and other kinds of drinks, and we tend to stir things that are direct cocktails like these with just clear spirits and wines. That is done for the texture of the drink, and that's done in this way, so what we're trying to do is when we stir this over ice, we're trying to add water, incorporate all the ingredients, dilute it, and chill it, right? Actually, just sidebar, in the freezer, because we add all the things and water, as that bottle's reaching the lower temp towards freezing, all the water in it wants to try and freeze. It causes pressure because water expands as it gets close to the freezing point. That pressure causes the integration. The dilution is present because we've added water. And it's happening at a temperature far below anything we could ever do in an ambient environment. So there's actually real science behind why this became texturally the way that it is. And even now as it warms up a little bit, it is one thing. And so shaking and stirring are the two conventional ways to get there. Shaking gives you a little more water, a little more ice. And in the later period of James Bond drinking the shaken vodka martini, vodka is easier to digest, right? So he's drinking vodka with more water. He's not, there's two things going on at once. Yes, he drinks like crazy, but at the same time, he's sort of drinking in a way that he can keep going. So there's those competing elements are in different parts of the books and movies, but in that scene, he's just trying to put the guys off at the poker table, and then he's creating this drink that he names in honor of the female protagonist. The other interesting thing about that is Ian Fleming was a known drunkard and an avowed drinker, and so, but it is not thought that he necessarily tested the recipe. It is the lore is that this drink was created in fiction and then realized in real life.
Well, it's a pretty extraordinary drink, and maybe I shared this with you before, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I read something recently that to keep his wits about him, because normally people wouldn't really want a shaken martini because they don't necessarily want it diluted, but James Bond would want it shaken because it would be more diluted. As the ice is bruised, it waters down the drink, and he's a little more sober to keep against Dr. No and the others who are coming at him.
And at the same time, somewhat unconventional. But, if you go far enough back, you'll see recipes of direct drinks that call for shaking. In the era that was done, when you do find that before you feel like you found proof that we should all be doing that all the time, that was on larger hand-cut pieces of ice, so less dilution. And the shaking wasn't as vigorous as the kind that we do for like egg white drinks and sours and things like that.
Well, I have to tell you, so I was telling people last night at dinner, I was out at a dinner, and I was telling them that you were coming on. They were very excited about this segment because they're well aware of your history in this city and what you have done. And their fundamental question for you is, what is a dirty martini? Suggesting that this is a bit of an issue as well. This can be a little controversial.
Yeah, so you just see how I'm wired. I don't sit back and I don't judge. Like, I'm evaluating all the time. And I felt forever that the dirty martini drinker was one of us being underserved. They had wanted something savory, and they figured out how to get it. Again, they wanted something, whether they knew it or not, with less alcohol and more flavor. And so I never maligned that drink. As I did kind of more research about it, come to find in like the 1890s, there is a moment where olives are muddled into a martini instead of as the garnish, right? And that's sort of the birth of it. That's the way FDR made the post-prohibition cocktail at the White House and before repeal, actually, at the White House, with the little olive brine. He's not, whether other people had that innovation or not, we don't know. It wasn't really transcribed, but we know that he did that. So by then is a way of looking at it. Within 40 years or so, this idea of using the brine was there. So I think, now in this age where there's this Instagrammable cocktails, and there's so many that are culinarily based that they're coming out of like things from the kitchen. We have like all kinds of exotic, savory drinks. That market's being served a little bit better, but at the same time, it remains a great call and the right thing for certain occasions, So I'll dirty up any of these classics. I'll dirty the Vesper. I'll dirty the Astoria. Any of these classic name martini variations with a little bit of olive brine can be a delight.
Well, let's keep with our world leaders for a second. And Winston Churchill loved his martini, but he, I think, would order up his martini, but when it came to vermouth, he had this great quote about just glance at the glass of the bottle of vermouth.
That, I wish that were apocryphal. I fear it was probably true. The Brits and the French have this thing, and being strong for his country and enjoy. He was on the way to the 100% gin martini early on, which is a delight. Gin is best when it's stirred over some ice and water and garnished with something to enhance its various flavor profiles. But yeah, that plus the liquor companies in the 20th century are really who put vermouth kind of out of people's minds. But we've been doing a lot of work in the 21st century to put it right back in where it belongs. And it's one of the products I order multiple cases a week of now, instead of counting a dirty bottle of vermouth like in the 90s I would do every inventory that only went down a tiny bit.
Well, what is it that vermouth brings?
Well, in order, it brings all kinds of complementary flavors to the botanicals in gin. It brings complexity. It also takes the alcohol content down while doing that. It brings gustatorial effects too. It has kind of bittering agents that help you salivate, that help you get hungry, that help you digest. And so, it is like the perfect, it's the essential part of a great martini. And it's just been encouraging to see people like over time now are developing a little more appetite for it. They still will call for a bone dry martini if that's how they learn and where they came from, but they'll pick one that I've put on the menu with a name that has a lot of vermouth in it to try it and enjoy it. So we've been doing that for so long now. Most people understand that that a martini is more than just one ingredient.
So we're coming back to it, but I should pause for a moment we've talked a lot about the martini here. What will be the experience? This is about a 20-minute or a little bit less, 20-minute segment. What is the experience that your people are going to have? Look at the ice is clinging to your second bottle. Do we have another tasting coming up? Is that without?
Yeah, I was going to make another. I don't know how much time we have. I thought
we still have about 5 minutes. So
one of the things, you mentioned the dirty martini, and I think I can do this without actually breaking all this ice off. One of the other ones that people talk a lot about that they expect somebody with a craft background to malign is the espresso martini. And it is on fire worldwide again. This is a drink that has great pedigree. Invented by the late, great Dick Bredsell in London. He christened it the vodka espresso when he made it for a Russian model who came into his famous bar and said, and I'm not going to mess up here, I promise, Dick, I need you to make me something that will wake me up and bleep me up. And so the espresso martini was born. It didn't get that name until a little while later. This is another one we've done in the freezer from Equal Measure. And we use a little bit of Amaro in our modern version of it. And instead of shaking it to get that beautiful froth like we do at Eastern Standard and Standard Italian, we top this with a vegan whipped cream, which I'm hoping works out for us here for those watching.
Here comes the cream. We can't hear it, but that's a gorgeous. That's a piece of art too that you've just created. Again, if we know a lot of people are listening, but you can also see this on our GBH News YouTube stream.
The tricks of the pastry department, and then we garnish it with just a little shaved chocolate.
You have just sculpted a martini, is what you have done. And so this has been popular for a while. Is it still one of the most popular drinks, if not the most popular?
It's hard to imagine something this popular still being on the rise, but it is. And it's very popular in the world. It's very popular in Boston. Cheers.
Cheers. Now I have whipped cream on my face.
We encourage everybody who gets the milk mustache from that to Instagram them. But you get the bitterness of the coffee, the sweetness of the sugar, the Braulio Amaro in there, like just enhances those effects. It's herbaceous, it's complex. And, when Dick created this drink, it was vodka, coffee, brandy, espresso, and sugar. And those are kind of the essential elements. And anything you want to do with those is sort of like you're given carte blanche these days to do. So we do like the drink to layer and have this look of a coffee drink, right? That's accomplished with the volatile oils in espresso or cold brew, if you go that route like we do at some of our spots, being well shaken, right? And it creates that crema across the top. And then you can do it here if you're going to do a freezer version by topping it with something else. So at Standard Italian, we serve it with chocolate-covered espresso beans. So
of course you do. Yeah. Quick question before we end. 2 different glasses. Marjorie was asking me this on the crossover before this. Is there the ideal glass for martini? I'm thinking no, because you just served in 2, sort of a coupe glass, maybe not a coupe glass, and the V.
I'm so glad that you saw that. Yes, both of these I think are very suitable for the martini. The V shape is an icon that a lot of young craft folks hate because it's unstable on a tray, and if it's filled to the top, hard to not spill. The coupe is a little bit more synonymous with the craft movement. I love them both. These are both really important, elegant pieces of glassware, and that's why I wanted to show you martinis served in both of them.
Well, Jackson Cannon, always great to have you here. And as I mentioned, this is just a prelude to the wonderful class and thorough class you're about to do that people can sign up for.
Only a few spots left, Jared, so...
Well, probably not now after this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Happy New Year, and thank you for the cocktails.
Cheers.
Jackson Cannon is beverage director for ES Hospitality, home to some of the city's most celebrated restaurants. On January 24th, you can get the full martini experience by way of his Martini 2.0 cocktail class. You can find tickets at Open Table. And thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. You can tune in tomorrow or join us live at the Boston Public Library for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. Among our topics, the heat is on as streaming audiences lose their minds over Shane and Ilya, the professional hockey players with a romance for the ages in the show Heated Rivalry. Plus, if you're looking for a job and you have more skills than Indiana Jones, check out the British Museum. It's hiring a real-life treasure hunter. Remember, no reservations required to join our studio audience. Thanks today to Brad Lewis, who produced our YouTube live stream. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your afternoon with us. Stay with us for GBH's All Things Considered at 4 and Marketplace at 6:30. But first, the world. A global view of today's headlines from the World Newsroom, right here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, fueled by cutting-edge research and aided by the latest technology, professionals can choose from more than 90 in-person and online courses offered throughout the year. Executive.mit.edu. Examine the fault lines in American democracy through an unlikely relationship between a liberal public defender and her clients caught up in the January 6th Capitol attack. Watch Public Defender tonight at 9 on GBH2.
Renee Nicole Good, the unarmed woman shot by ICE agents in Minnesota, was a mother of 3 and an acclaimed poet. I'm Arun Roth. Today on GBH's All Things Considered, we'll have the latest on the shooting and the victim, as well as local reaction to what happened. Also on the show, Governor Healy has a plan to protect residents from rising healthcare costs as ACA tax subsidies expire. It's all starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at